Golvellius Valley of Doom is an action-adventure game developed by Compile and released for the Sega Master System in 1988. The game follows the adventures of a warrior named Kalisis, who must rescue his kidnapped love interest, Rena, from the evil sorcerer Golvellius. This fantasy world looks much like Zelda, of course, consisting of several interconnected regions, each with its own unique landscapes and enemies. Kalisis must explore these regions, defeat monsters and bosses, and collect power-ups and items to progress.
One of the things that makes Suikoden worth the price is its story. The game follows the protagonist, a young warrior, as he becomes embroiled in a conflict between two rival nations. The basis of the story is political intrigue, which was not new to gaming at the time, obviously, but it's aptly pinned here. It's so good.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
We also get to see yet another psychopathic villain who pushes the limits of what we accepted at the time. The story is well written and full of twists and turns, and the characters are well developed and likable. And that's saying a lot for a game that has over, again, 100 playable characters. What? The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons and Ages. What is there to say? It's Zelda. It's Zelda, right? So many people enjoy The Legend of Zelda, whether it be new or old games. These two games are very similar in presentation and gameplay, so I figured it'd be safe to include both. Viewers will love hearing those familiar Zelda tunes and helping you keep track of where to go and what to do, particularly during the fetch quests and dungeons. Playing this game allows not only you, but a whole group of Links, your viewers, to share in the magic that Hyrule has to offer. Do note, however, that this game is longer than one might imagine, so be prepared for that. If you start playing this game, you're dedicating some time. The song Consumate, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this right. The song Consumate Furore for the PC game Phantasmagoria is a Latin hymn that is used in the particularly unsettling scenes in the game. Not that there's a few, there's quite a few going on in this game. There's a lot of messed up stuff. I hesitate even to show you clips from it. The game's most chilling moments are accompanied by the haunting hymn Consumate Furore. It's a Latin chant that translates to consume my rage. What? A little edgy, a little creepy, but why is this song so unnerving? Rambo for the NES is a clone of Zelda 2 for the NES, and it's not bad. It's a side-scrolling action game released in 1988. The game is based on the Rambo movie franchise, particularly the second movie, Rambo First Blood Part 2. Confusing title, but whatever. Instead of Link, we're Sylvester Stallone as Rambo. No, it's Rambo, not Ramdo. Instead of Link, we're Sylvester Stallone. I can't say Sylvester Stallone. Instead of Link, we're Sylvester Stallone and Instead of Link, we are Sylvester. Got it. Instead of Link, we're Stallone as Rambo. Sweet Home is a survival horror role-playing game developed and published by Capcom for the NES. The Famicom, really. It came out in Japan in 1989, but years later, we got a fan translation. It was one of the first games in the survival horror genre and was heavily inspired by horror movies, particularly The Evil Dead. The game takes place in an abandoned mansion where a team of 5 documentary filmmakers and a painter have gone to explore the mansion and search for hidden frescoes. However, they soon discover that the mansion is haunted by supernatural entities that they must fight to survive and escape. Scooby-Doo for the Genesis is such a beautiful and colorful game that it's a joy simply to look at. I think that viewers can certainly appreciate the cartoon-like graphics and the nostalgia of Scooby-Doo on the screen. As a matter of fact, I think this is probably the most accurate representation of what it would be like to solve mysteries with Mystery Inc. The game is a semi-point-and-click adventure, as point-and-click as it can get on a Sega Genesis, of which there are few for the system. The puzzles are not obtuse, but they do offer a few head-scratching moments along the way. Viewers will enjoy puzzle solving and suggesting solutions right alongside you. It's also a brief game, which makes it perfect for a 1 or 2 hour stream session. 3 Dirty Dwarves. I only ever owned a disc copy of this game. I kept seeing this in video game magazines and I absolutely loved that cartoon art style. I've always loved cartoons, as a kid, as an adult, so that naturally carried over into my gaming hobby as well. I wanted to play every cartoon game that I could get my hands on, and I thought this game looked very much like a cartoon. The prospect of playing a game that could have easily been a Saturday morning show, it had me hooked bad. I still haven't played much of 3 Dirty Dwarves, but I can appreciate it enough from a distance to know that I wants it. What's it precious? 3 Dirty Dwarves goes for about $150. The music in this game is absolutely legendary. The Amazon music, it's great. Transylvania is a classic. The theme song in 8-bit is absolutely iconic, but really, you know what we're all here for now. I love some Moon theme, and who doesn't? If you're a retro enthusiast,
You absolutely adore the moon theme, I'd imagine. People will get wild about this. Wacky Races. Wacky Races for the NES is a platform game released by Atlas in 1991. It's a dark fantasy RPG. No, it's not. It's kind of what it sounds like, but it's not. It might be wacky, but it's not a race. Despite being released by Atlas, it's not an RPG. Womp womp. The game draws inspiration from the popular Hanna-Barbera cartoon series called Wacky Races. Wacky Races drips with nostalgia for those who love the cartoon. It gives you the opportunity to chew the tires off of other racers like Penelope Pitstop, which can be a delightful experience for fans of the show. Power Blade is a side-scrolling action video game released for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1991. The game takes place in the year 2191, where a computer system called The System has been infected by a virus, causing it to go rogue and take over the world. In this game, you are Special Agent Nova, who has been equipped with the Power Suit and the Power Blade, a boomerang-like weapon to combat the virus and its minions. You're fighting through 6 levels to defeat the bosses and ultimately destroy the virus by punching it, or something. Like, you're gonna punch that virus, or I don't know. And the longest US-released Super Nintendo RPG, Final Fantasy VI. That's arguable that it's the longest, but Final Fantasy VI is, of course, nothing short of a masterpiece. It is one of the most favorably viewed RPGs for the Super Nintendo, and of course, all time. The turn-based combat has some tweaks, which makes it fun, with some key inputs and such. It's nothing wild. Battles don't overstay their welcome, which is awesome. There's random battles, but not an egregious amount like Super Ninja Boy. What fills the time here is character development and story, and baby, that's what we like. There's a reason so many people have dedicated the 35 or so hours necessary to beat this game. This game is totally worth it. Golden Axe Warrior for the Sega Master System. I think this could be my favorite Zelda clone on this list. That is not to say that the other ones aren't wonderful, it's just this one is so particularly good. I have to admit that I didn't put a lot of stock into the Sega Master System until more recently. After playing Phantasy Star, Govelius, and Golden Axe Warrior, I have to say I'm stoked to check out other games on the system. I know there's a ton of crap, as there is for every system, but I found some really cool stuff on the Sega Master System since I've been exploring. This Zelda clone nearly perfectly captures that spirit. Had different sprites been used in the game, and the names changed to Zelda lore, I would have believed that this is the sequel to Zelda 1 for the NES over what became Zelda 2 for the NES.
I have been playing Final Fantasy games for over 30 years. I love other Disney games. Why don't I like this? Why don't I like it? The big black fruit looks suspicious. What a stupid line.
I'm not afraid of the darkness.
I'm not afraid of the darkness. I mean, we all saw this coming a mile away, right? Like, the dude's got gray hair and he's like a kid. Oh, no, what the? He's carrying me. He's pulling me with him. This game sucks. Look at this big-footed monster in front of me. Move over. Suck it, emo kid. Wait, what? No, where are you going? No. No.
Oh, say! I like green eggs and ham. I do. I like them, Sam, I am.
Motor Toon Grand Prix. This game came out at a time when there were so many racing games flooding the market. Suddenly there was opportunity for racing games to look much more realistic in 3D than they could have with pixel art. Of course, this started to push for more realism and left the kart racer behind a little bit. While there are other kart races on the PlayStation 1, this one is my favorite, even over Chocobo Racing. I think the reason this became overlooked had to do with its stiff competition. Even if one wasn't interested in realistic looking racers, this was still against the like of Mario Kart. This game isn't Mario Kart, but it's certainly fun and worth a play should you get a chance. It's got exactly what you'd expect with power-ups, racing, goofy, well-done graphics, and colorful characters. Sincerely, if you like car racers and haven't played this, you owe it to yourself. I absolutely loved the combat in this game. It was intense, it was frantic. It allowed players to play as many different classes in Final Fantasy lore and weave these together in classes and subclasses to allow you to tailor your combat experience to your exact playstyle. It was beautiful. It was so much fun discovering new job classes and combining them with different playstyles that were all different. Switching back and forth between heavy magic users and fast monk punch combos is wildly invigorating. Man, it's so fun. It's just so fun. Despite the power the game gives you in all of these jobs and class combinations, the game is particularly difficult at times, while even on just the normal setting, and I can appreciate that. Super Ninja Boy. Yeah, it certainly doesn't sound like an RPG. It sounds more like a cheap cartoony platform for the Super Nintendo, but I assure you it's not. You have some early RPG graphics, think, Final Fantasy IV for the Super Nintendo, and random battles that are side-scroller beat-em-ups. Well, except for the bosses. You gain experience, level up, and equip gear, the standard fare. It's certainly an RPG, even if it's a short one. What's better is that it's 2 players. That's odd. Travel around and solve the mystery of some missing villagers, which is fun, but be prepared for an absolute ton, a metric ton of random battles. The game is oddly punishing on normal difficulty, and I think that the difficulty of the game certainly adds to the length for sure. If you have a map and know what to do, it's going to be a wildly short game, clocking in at only about 6 hours. Yo Noid. What the flip? Yo Noid wasn't actually Yo Noid? Apparently, this was a game called Wagon Land that was modified for the US in a partnership with Domino's Pizza. Wow, Super Mario Bros. 2 and now this? Whatever, it's still a cool cartoon game. The Noid was a Domino's advertising tool that sometimes showed up as a claymation thing and sometimes as a cartoon and advertising in Domino's Pizza. Yo Noid was known as Kamen no Ninja Hanamaru in Japan. I probably butchered that, but whatever. It's another platformer published by Capcom. It hit the gaming scene in Japan on March 16, 1990, in its original Hanamaru form. But then it took on its true and elevated form in Yo Noid in the US. Grandia has everything I love. It's the story of some kids that are seemingly coming of age, and they stumble across some trouble, and everything gets wildly deep story-wise along the way. It goes from being a super kidsy, innocent sort of game to some real-life altering consequences sort of stuff. Gameplay-wise, good news, the monsters are visible on the playfield.
Standing ovation.
The length of the game honestly doesn't have to do with slow combat or anything like that, thank God. It's just that it's a sprawling adventure, covering a considerable amount of time in multiple continents in this game's world, spanning from childhood innocence and adventure to the responsibility of the children to save the world. Clocking in at 42 hours, it's a pretty stout game. You're probably going to get your money's worth out of that one. Arc the Lad 2. Arc the Lad 2 is a pretty meaty RPG experience. This game certainly isn't a weekend endeavor, that's for sure. While it's not as simple as a game like Ys where it's a continuing story and you can just jump into anywhere, Arc the Lad 2 is actually just a straight-up continuation of the first story. Despite the access the game might give in terms of backstory, so you can jump in, I think I'd feel compelled to go through these in order. And there's just so many of them, and many of them are long. Only the first Arc the Lad game is a bit short. The rest are beastly.
Hey, keep it in the circuit!
Apparently this game has a pretty dark tone as well, which I can always appreciate. The game starts pretty linear, but opens up further along. It clocks in at around 47.5 hours. Whoa. I feel like Square Enix is just getting better and better as they experiment with this combat system we've been seeing since around Final Fantasy 15. And now I can't wait to see what Final Fantasy 16 is like. That's really exciting. The combat just keeps getting better. This game could have been a major flop with the enhancements that they implemented into the story, but as a big Final Fantasy VII fan, I can confidently tell you that they treated it correctly. They treated it right. The story is fantastic and has something new for the fans of the old Final Fantasy VII. The characters and the world is much more fleshed out. It's just, It's simply the game I think Squaresoft would have made back in 1997 without the hardware limitations of the time. I'm a little bummed that I waited so long to get through it, but fortunately, I was able to avoid spoilers like a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. You should play Secret of Evermore because of the dog. Who doesn't love a dog, right? Cat person or not, folks just can't seem to get enough of doggos, understandably. Well, this is certainly one of those times where you see the dog and think immediately, I would die for this dog. This dog is sort of the reason you start your adventure off in the first place, as he runs off and leads you to a mansion where some shady stuff is apparently going down. Once you're transported to another land, your dog changes form, and it will continue to do so from land to land and from time to time, and that's really awesome to see. The dog consistently helps you out in battle and uses its doggo sniffer to sniff out alchemy supplies for you in each area. And having access to these ingredients is wildly important. The dog, beyond its normal form in the beginning, turns into a large wolf for the prehistoric times. It sort of reminds me of that wolf darkness thing from the Neverending Story. A little spooky. There were a ton of fighting games coming out at the time of this game and the generation before. There's Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, tons of fighting games that came out around that time. During this generation, there was also Virtua Fighter, there was Battle Arena Toshinden, there's Tekken, there's a lot. There's a lot coming out at this point. I really enjoyed this one because it was just so far out there. It has really cool sci-fi graphics. It has like some blue people in it. It's got like what's his name? That guy. Chewbacca. Yeah, that's his name, Chewbacca. It has like a Chewbacca looking character, and it has like a lightsaber sort of dude that fights people, some lady with like rings that raw. It has excellent sci-fi graphics and this really cool, colorful aesthetic about it. Very neat. And the biggest selling point for me in this game is that it's fun. It's fun. It's well done, well executed, and it's fun.
Introducing Game Boy. It's portable, it's in stereo, and its games
Xanadu is yet another game comparable to Zelda 2. This one focuses much more on story, it seems. It felt like a good portion of the game was me wandering around towns and gathering information from the locals on what I should do next. The combat in Zelda 2 I think is fine, but I was a little disappointed in Xanadu's combat. I had literally no idea until I was researching further information to this game that it is a sort of spin-off from the Dragon Slayer series. That's super cool. I had no idea. The story is pretty self-contained, really. You've returned home to find that things are awry, and you then make preparations to set out and solve the mystery as to why everything just kinda sucks in the area at the moment. The overworld consists of just a few select places that are not terribly far from the original town, but the story is pretty solid as you work to find the sword that would destroy evil, like Zelda, and then make your way to the last boss for the final showdown. Gargoyle's Quest for the Game Boy. Before Cthulhu saved the world and Christmas, a demon named Firebream was hard at work on it. He's a demon, he's got a good heart, right? And a nice set of wings. The second game was on the NES and the third was on the Super Nintendo, so this is where we see the original game. The original story of Firebrand, well, in the spin-offs. Flying around and spitting fireballs at enemies it's fun. It's a bit of a slow game, slowly paced game, but it's still a very fun game. The real star of the show, though, is the boss battles. They are certainly some cool looking sprites for a Game Boy game. As always, it's good to see helpful NPCs who offer up some truly bizarre advice. Go south, go east, go north. Wow. Thanks for the tip. Awesome. Say, have you considered a job in Zelda 2 or Castlevania 2? Gargoyle's Quest may be a short game, but it's certainly one of the best for the Game Boy. And because it's one of the best games for the Game Boy, I think it's certainly worth the $40 price tag, especially for retro collectors, particularly if you're one that's focused on handheld games. Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo. Now this is my favorite puzzle game. It's a tough call between this game and Tetris, but I believe this might be the game for me. This might be my favorite, like my penultimate puzzle game. It's so good. The gameplay is awesome when you stack bricks together in an attempt to get large, like-colored bricks, and then chain the breaking of those bricks together. When you break bricks, it stacks them on the other player and makes them deal with them for a short while. So it's actually like the fighter aspect is you dumping your garbage on somebody else. If their bricks turn, however, you could be in for big trouble. It's a game that doesn't feel too overwhelming when you get behind, because you can still quickly recover. It never really feels one-sided. This game, like almost every puzzle game, is likely living in the shadow of Tetris. Tetris is a great game. Being a silver medal or second fiddle to Tetris is not really an insult. I rarely hear anyone talk about this game, and I have loved it for years. As a child, I was enamored with DuckTales. I watched a lot of DuckTales. I watched a lot of Rescue Rangers. I watched movies. I watched cartoon movies like Little Nemo. I watched the Bucky O'Hare cartoon. I watched the Super Mario Brothers cartoon. I watched Darkwing Duck. So a lot of this, of course, would lead me to play video games based on those franchises, right? I love the Rescue Rangers, so it made sense that I would be interested in playing a Rescue Rangers game. I thought Darkwing Duck was just the coolest thing ever, and so, of course, yeah, I would be interested in playing Darkwing Duck as well. The Disney-Capcom relationship for the NES really ate up a lot of my time as a child. Where else was I going to get a chance to play as Scrooge McDuck? Or where else was I going to get the opportunity to fight crime like the Rescue Rangers? Or even Darkwing Duck? It allowed me to live out a fantasy that I was already living out in the cartoon by watching the cartoon. Except it was me with a controller in hand playing it and making the decisions. Final Fantasy Tactics is the best Final Fantasy game on the PS1. I said it. The story is a masterful work of fantasy fiction filled with political intrigue, betrayal, and moral ambiguity. The characters are fleshed out with complex personalities and motivations, making them more than just pawns on a chessboard. Combat in this game and the job system is just the gameplay in Final Fantasy Tactics is nothing short of exceptional. The turn-based strategy system is beautifully executed, allowing for an immense amount of depth and strategy. Each battle is like a puzzle waiting to be solved, with a vast array of jobs, classes, abilities, and equipment at your disposal. The beautifully rendered 2D sprites and detailed environments are a sight to behold, with each character and creature just uniquely designed and animated. It looks so good. The music is absolutely stunning. It's fantastic. And it has Nobuo Uematsu's iconic score, adding an unforgettable atmosphere to each moment. It is a fantastic game. The Nightmare Before Christmas for the Game Boy Advance. It's a little spooky. It's a spooky little treat. I gotta be honest with you. I was a little skeptical at first, but I have to admit, I was pleasantly surprised. The game is a scream. I mean, literally, right? You play as Jack Skellington, the Pumpkin King himself, as he tries to save the town from the bugs of that Scrooge Oogie Boogie. Let me tell you, it's not easy. You'll have to dodge fireballs, jump over spikes, avoid all sorts of other deadly traps. But don't worry, you got a few tricks up your bony sleeves, like throwing presents at your enemies and using Fran's breath on practically everything. The graphics are just as spooky and delightful as you'd expect from a Nightmare Before Christmas game, with all the creepy crawlies and ghoulish characters you know and love. And the music, oh yeah, the music. It's like Danny Elfman himself was haunting my ears with those catchy little chiptunes. Now, I will say that the game can be a bit frustrating. It's definitely not a walk in the park, or well, more appropriately a stroll through the graveyard or whatever, but hey, what's a good game without a little bit of challenge, right? With such a rabid fan base, I'm surprised it's still going for just a little over $30. Star Fox Adventures. Now, I know what you're thinking. Star Fox, a game about flying spaceships and shooting stuff, right? Well, hold on to your blasters, folks. This time around, Fox McCloud is getting rid of the air wing. He's outside of the ship, right? He's picking up a staff for a good old-fashioned whack, whack, whack with a baseball bat. The graphics in this game are top-notch for the era. The lush landscapes and detailed character models will make you feel like you're actually exploring in some kind of weird far-off planet. It's cool. This game is Zelda, with dinosaurs and spaceships, and the persistent wooden sword with a whack, whack, whack with a baseball bat, right? There's puzzles to solve and enemies to whack, 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 and treasures to collect. Lots and lots of treasures. But here's the thing. The game can be a bit, well, how do I put it? Be a bit cheesy. I mean, it's Fox running around with his stick and talking to dinosaurs and saving princesses. It's like someone took Conan the Barbarian and mixed him in with the Flintstones. So the dialogue is pretty cringy. That being said, there's a certain charm to the game's silliness. It doesn't take itself too seriously, most of the time. And neither should you. Just embrace the weirdness. There's been a little more attention on this game lately. It said Ivalice like Final Fantasy Tactics or Final Fantasy 12 and Final Fantasy 12 Revenant Rings, like Final Fantasy 12 Revenant Wings, right? It's an action RPG, and it has an interesting battle system where you particularly, like, you aim at parts of the enemies. You're going for the arm on an enemy, you're going for his, like, leg or something to, like, you want to jack him up in very specific ways when you're fighting people in battle. A bit of a sphere kind of comes around the character, and you get to, like, decide where you hit somebody, and it has different effects. Hit him in the face, it does something different. Hit him in the leg, it does something different. So that's a really kind of neat action RPG battle system. The graphics are absolutely super dated, but there's charm in that. It was completely 3D rendered. I don't think there's like a shred of 2D in this game, unless maybe the character portraits and the thought bubbles. The gameplay is particularly addictive. I really enjoy the combat in the game. This game is as good, if not better, than Awakening for the 3DS, and that game is known to be an incredible game.
Marcia!
This game has branching paths to take and different houses you can choose to play as, which gives it plenty of replayability, but it also has lots of social things that you can do, like date and marry characters and do school activities, which I hear is similar to Persona 5. I've just never played Persona 5 yet. The best part is all of this stuff, the best part is that it's optional. I gotta appreciate that. Making that social stuff optional, that's brilliant. It's so good. I did some of the social stuff at the beginning, but I got bogged down in it and like doing the social stuff, and I just kind of quit.
I'm popular.
So what I did was decide to go gung-ho into the story and just push up until the end. And I was able to skip all of the school stuff, and that is incredible. I really appreciate that. Don't make me be social if I don't want to. Please, just don't. Super Princess Peach. First off, I have to give Princess Peach a shout out for finally getting her own game. Woohoo! You will go, girls. It's about time, right? Let me tell you, she does not disappoint. She's got some serious girl power in this game. She can use her emotions to power up and take down enemies. Talk about emotional intelligence. Ha-cha-cha-cha-cha. The game itself is a classic platformer with plenty of obstacles to jump over, enemies to defeat, and secrets to uncover. But what really sets it apart are the graphics and sound effects. This game is gorgeous. The colors are bright and bold, and the sound effects are whimsical and playful. It's like playing a candy-coated Wonderland. And you can't forget about Perry, right? Peach's magical talking umbrella. It's like Mary Poppins on steroids. He can transform into different tools for Peach to use, like a drill or an umbrella parachute. Plus, he's got some serious sass. He's not afraid to call Peach out when she's not using her emotions to their full potential. You go, Perry. Overall, Super Princess Peach is a must-play for any DS owner. It's fun, colorful, and just the right amount of challenging. Final Fantasy II. You know what? Vanilla as it is, it's still a good game. I'd played this game, but I hadn't beaten it till this year. I was honestly surprised with how well the story in the game has held up. Sure, it has some funky dialogue along the way, but when you consider the context of this game among other console RPGs at the time in 1991, it's still a solid story and a solid telling of that story. Let's just say the translation has come a long way. I had attempted this game many times and stopped just short of beating it, but I finally forced myself to carry this game with me until I finished it, and by the time I got near the ending, I was compelled to finish it. I dare say it was even fun. I have to admit, of course, that I didn't do the solid grind as it would have been done back in the day. I used fast forward on the battles to speed up the grinding process. It made the game much more enjoyable, honestly. I slowed down for the big battles, or the difficult battles, but I blitzed through the random encounter rates, making the best of my own time, and the game was much better for it. Final Fantasy IV is still worth playing today.
Pokemon Snap. Dang! Who doesn't like taking pictures of those adorable little pocket monsters, right? Despite this being an on-rail shooter, that's exactly what it is. Don't pretend that it's not. It's certainly not going to bore you or your viewers. Having the viewers enjoy the relaxing ride and giving suggestions for photos and poses, as well as hints as to where Pokemon will pop up, will keep your chat lively. Everybody loves sharing the story of their relationship with Pokemon, so be prepared to listen to them. Maniac Mansion. Sure, this game is probably better as the deluxe version on the PC, but for a port on the NES, this is an absolute banger of a point-and-click adventure. There's not many point-and-click adventures on the NES. The music absolutely shreds, and the graphics are pretty solid for the NES, and faithful enough to the PC. Stick your finger in the right place, solve a puzzle, folks. The fate of the world depends on you and a tentacle.
Power Blade, despite the goofy title, is a testament as to what the NES with great developers was capable of. It's not too difficult, despite a substantial challenge. It has varied gameplay and level design to keep players from getting bored. It may be a conglomeration of the games that came before it, but realistically these days, what game isn't? This game was simply capitalizing on it hardcore, taking the best aspects of other action platformers and refining them.
Wacky Races. Another platformer based on a cartoon. Now, hear me out. This game is just as legit as any other platform on the system, aside from the Mario games, and it has some really neat boss fights. Play as Muttley, my absolute love child, and defeat other racers at the end of each level. Maybe people expected a racing game instead of a platformer. I don't know. Either way, this one is easily missed if you don't know. And now you do.
I said, are we still good for $20 for all 4 of these games? She said, absolutely. So, I'm losing a kidney today. It's the story I'm telling you. Somebody's gonna find this video. This is found footage. This is the Blair Witch Project for video games. That would be me standing in a corner, my face in a corner, being like, Blair Witch, you got any Super Nintendo games? Thud. That's the way I'll go. That's what the gypsy said.
Meet Kids. It's not based on a cartoon, it's based on a fast food restaurant, baby. Meet Kids is a solid platformer. That's pretty weird, honestly. The controls are a little wild, or slippery, or greasy, however you want to put it, which might be appropriate for the food, right? But there's plenty of challenge here, and it's fair for the most part. It's a fair game. It gave me crazy anxiety as a kid because I kept fearing that I would fall into the sky, just fall upward and just die. But that's a story for another day.
Final Fantasy IV is still worth playing today for sure. I would certainly find a copy of the game that would allow you to fast forward through random encounters, or find a ROM hack that lowers the encounter rate and ups the rewards for battles or something. They certainly exist. There's simply no reason to force yourself into the war of attrition that is old school grinding and encounter rates.
No, please, no more.
Unless you enjoy that part of it, just don't do that to yourself. In Yo Noid, New York City is eat up with trouble because of the Noid's evil duplicate, Mr. Green. It's all good though, because the bounty for the head of this despicable monster is pizza, provided by the mayor of New York. New York style pizza, one may ask? No. Domino's pizza, baby. It's enough to make one want to murder their twin in cold blood. I'm not suggesting Domino's endorses violence, but Domino's does. Tiny Toon Adventures 2, Trouble in Wacky Land. You know those sketchy rides at the local town fairs in just every town USA? The ones that you see constructed and deconstructed in a matter of hours? Where part of the thrill of the ride is whether it'll do what it's supposed to do or not? That is the thrill of Wacky Land as well. It requires a combination of skill, patience, and persistence to complete this game. And if you've got less skill like I do, then you're going to need more patience. That's right, this game once again features multiple endings based not only on your performance monetarily, but on whether or not you found all the map pieces in each stage that's hidden and use that map to find your way to the secret area with an optional boss. The worst ending, of course, is if you have no money. If that's the case, Scrooge watches helplessly as Flint-Heart Glomgold becomes the richest duck. Oh, that's not good. What a travesty. Makes you want to kill. I'm kidding.
Flintstone's rescue of Dino and Hoppy. No, not the wildly expensive one, just the reasonably expensive one.
But Frederick, it's so expensive.
This game is a good representative of the Flintstone cartoon. Hammering things with your club is absolutely satisfying. It takes some wild turns along the way, but it's often overlooked on lists. I think it's simply because the other Flintstones game gets most of the attention for the NES because it has such a crazy price tag on it.
Given the media I was ingesting growing up, I really anticipated utilizing and seeing utilized the noble boomerang more in my life. It's sort of like the quicksand idea, right? Saturday morning cartoons made us think that this would be a much bigger problem. And video games and even a few cartoons made me think that the boomerang would have its own school course or something. I'm sorry, Judy, we'd like to advance you further in schooling, but you didn't pass 4th grade boomerang skills, so you're lost. What a letdown, really. I guess it's a letdown? I digress. Intelligent Cube. I first played this on a demo disc and I thought it looked insanely dumb, kinda dull. But it's so fun. You dodge blocks and work to make blocks disappear. It's a deceptively simple game, but again, it's wildly addictive. There are so many puzzle games out there, and really, nothing tops Tetris when you get down to it. But this is my second favorite puzzle game on the system. Still, while it's a bit pricey, it's totally worth selling the 7 Cs for this one. Yarhar, here we go again! Super fun stuff. Definitely worth checking out.
Lunar Silver Star Story Complete for the PS1 is a pretty classic RPG, with combat that doesn't diverge too far from the standard turn-based battle system. The only real change from a standard system is that characters basically get a set amount of moves per turn. A character on auto attack will move toward a selected enemy and then attack if it's close enough. If they're close enough and have more moves available, they continue to beat on that enemy until it's dead, and then they move on to another enemy. Again, very satisfying to absolutely just mollywop something, just a
Where'd you go, psycho boy?
I felt like destroying something beautiful.
Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets for the Game Boy Color. It's an RPG. How did I go this many years without knowing Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets for Game Boy Color was an RPG? If you're expecting the cutting-edge, high-definition visuals of games today, you're not exactly looking in the room of requirement. But it does admittedly look impressive for a Game Boy Color game. The game may look slightly potato, but it's an impressive potato. But hey, it's all part of the charm of retro gaming, and if you're this far in the list, you're probably cool with compromising graphical fidelity for a neat experience, right? The game admittedly is a little slow in the gameplay department, but if you got the time, it's got the time for you. Look, it's no Chrono Trigger, but if you're in the mood for a game that's equal parts charming and punching above its weight, this one is definitely worth checking out, and especially for $15, man. $15 for a Harry Potter game on the Game Boy Color? Jetson's Cogswell's Caper. It's a weird name.
Hey, Jane, get me off this crazy thing called love.
George Jetson, our hero, gets a mission from his boss to put a stop to Mr. Cogwell's sneaky money-making schemes. Love it. Capitalistic sabotage. How dare he make more money than me? No worries though, George is into this espionage. So naturally, George infiltrates this dangerous mining facility on another planet. In this game, you'll be doing the standard walk and jump stuff, except you have a backpack that farts out a bit of power every once in a while to propel you forward.
Jesus Christ. That's Jason Bourne.
There's a popular urban legend that the Lavender Town theme caused a number of Japanese children to become ill and even commit suicide when the game was first released. While there is no evidence to support this claim, it has contributed to the theme's reputation as being unsettling and disturbing. The Lavender Town theme is a reminder that even in a colorful and vibrant world like Pokemon, there are darker and more unsettling elements lurking beneath the surface. The combination of the music, the context, and this urban legend has helped create a lasting impression of the Lavender Town theme as a chilling, truly chilling piece of music. Lavender Town. Imagine that you're wandering through a quiet town, surrounded by tombstones and grieving trainers. The only sound is the haunting melody of a slow, repetitive tune played on a synthesized instrument. This is the Lavender Town theme from the original Pokemon games, Blue and Red, known for its eerie and unsettling tone that has captured the attention of many fans. As you explore the town, you begin to feel a sense of unease. You realize that Lavender Town is a location in the Pokemon games that is associated with death and mourning. The music sets the tone for the somber and mournful atmosphere of the town, making you feel like you're walking through a ghostly world. It's creepy.
Little Nemo. This game is incredibly colorful. It has all the makings of an excellent Capcom game, but I don't hear people talk about it as often as other Capcom titles on the NES. Maybe it's because it's super difficult? Maybe it's because people are less familiar with the source material of this? I mean, it's a game based on a movie, based on a comic strip. Either way, criminally overlooked. Also, the Capcom music I can't handle.
Little Nemo the Dream Master. Little Nemo could likely be best described as whimsical, just like the film of a similar name. While this was Little Nemo the Dream Master, it's based on the Japanese cartoon Little Nemo Adventures of Slumberland. The action is slightly different here as you have to navigate each stage and look for keys to unlock the door to progress. Some of the keys are only accessible via animal vehicles that you choose to commandeer. While this isn't inherently too frustrating, the real fun begins when you discover how many keys you need after you reach the exit. Didn't get all the keys, only 4 this time? Guess what? You're backtracking. It's like a surprise party, except more annoying than fun, so much like a surprise party.
Little Samson. We only ever talk about this game because it's expensive.
Too expensive!
This game is good. The controls are tight. The graphics are some of the best on the platform. There's varied styles of gameplay from different characters. It may take some kind of nefarious means to play it because, it's expensive. But it's worth discussing this game beyond just its price.
Live Alive. Live Alive was a very highly anticipated game for me. I wanted to play the game back when I was making reproduction cards, but I didn't get around to it. When I decided I was finally going to start playing Live Alive, they announced a remake of it, and I was like, well, I guess I'll just wait until that comes out. I have to say, this one was a bit of a disappointment for me. The concept is brilliant. It's so good. I love the small stories along the way, but I didn't feel like anything I did in the game mattered until I started that final chapter. I realized I had to beat those other chapters to get to that final chapter, but I sincerely just wanted to spend more time in the worlds that the game created. But the ones I liked didn't last as long as I wanted, and the ones I didn't like never seemed to end. The first 3/4 of this game due to this is a mixed bag. The levels often felt inconsequential, really. The last quarter of the game was much more exciting, and honestly it did pay off in the end, but there were several moments along the way that almost caused me to stop playing.
Lone Ranger. Think Red Dead Redemption devolved. Explore a map, find your horse, go on an adventure, kill some baddies, collect some money, shoot some innocent people in the streets if you have to. Rockstar would absolutely be proud to put their sticker on this thing. The thing about the story is that it's a fantastic telling of this chosen hero story. Honestly, it sort of reminds me of The Watchmen, since it's like old heroes retire and new heroes take their place sort of setup. Pretty cool.
Now, we finally have the power to finish the job.
The character models in pixel art are fantastic. The cutscenes are second to none for the PS1, and the humor associated with this company is certainly in here. Also, there's some pretty neat hidden stuff. These bromides are some scantily clad or suggestive pics of the characters in the game. Fan service at its best, baby. Pirates of Dark Water. There are some well-noted beat-em-ups on the system, including Final Fight and King of Dragons, but Pirates of Dark Water is an awesome game based on the short-lived TV show. I guess because most tend to play Final Fight and King of Dragons, they forget about this game. That's why it's overlooked. The gameplay is just so incredibly solid. It's so fun and it's so addictive. There's just no better feeling than tossing a ton of enemies down a hole to make quick work of them. I highly recommend this game, particularly if you need something a little more difficult than your average beat 'em up, because difficulty it has.
Like you play as cartoon animals like a cat and a robot, like a mech suit, I guess, and you're fighting other cats, like naughty cats, I guess, trying to keep them from hurting people. Maybe they kidnapped a princess. There's something going on. There's some kind of like a weird story. It's kind of generic, but it's really fun. I mean, it's neat. It's lighthearted. The gameplay is really neat. You play as a mech. You go around, you're like slapping your arms on things, slapping boxes, slapping cats, and it's a lot of slapping, to be fair. But it has this really neat art style. It has a cool like flight mechanics sort of thing going on. The 3D areas are nicely rendered. I mean, it looks pretty good. There are like cartoon cutscenes which are really cool too, because I'm a sucker for that. When I started, the PlayStation 1 is like you can play some cartoons or CG cutscenes or stuff like that on the PlayStation 1, but you couldn't do before on older systems, at least not to the same effect. And it really does look nice.
True Lies, a movie tie-in. Really?
Denial. It's not just River in Egypt no more, is it, Harry?
I believe that is the crime of this, is that it's a movie tie-in. It's sincerely a super fun one, though. Think of it as a slower version of Zombies Ate My Neighbors, much more calculated than chaotic. The movie is a super serious, adult-oriented action movie, right? Which probably didn't help the sales of this game. It's got Arnold, who was crazy popular at the time still, but other than that, I can see why there wouldn't be a lot of appeal in checking this game out. Again, I recommend it. Probably not over Zombies Ate My Neighbors. But if you enjoy that top-down shooter style, you'd be silly not to check this one out. X-Men Mutant Apocalypse. This is one of the better action games on the SNES in my opinion. I think because there are so many superhero games on the SNES, this one gets covered up. This may not be a popular opinion. I mean, I'm not really sure, honestly, where people stand on this game, but this was one of the best, if not the best, for real. Particularly, the gameplay is tight, the sprite work is absolutely phenomenal, some huge, bright sprites. Growing up, I called Psylocke Pisslock because I wasn't sure how to pronounce it. Like she was some kind of magician of urine or something. I'm not really sure how that works. But I thought that was the way to pronounce Psylocke. The same thing happened with Psycrow from Earthworm Jim. That was Piss Crow to me. So, the Warlock of Piss, the Warlock of Urine. I command the power of urine. But yeah, not to distract, but it really is a pretty good game. And we should definitely keep it on our radar, right?
Hey guys, we're back here down at the gaming company. I'm Nathan.
Lee
from Pixel Bros. Today we're going to take a look at some NES games that a lot of people generally overlook. My pick today is Street Fighter 2010. This is a platforming adventure style game that has nothing to do with Ken and Ryu and so forth fighting out in the streets. No, this is like Ninja Gaiden and Strider. Think along those lines, both with the way the character animation is as well as the gameplay on it.
Street Fighter, and I just think obviously Capcom. I mean, it's by Capcom. Yeah, that's definitely overlooked for me because I literally look at it and go, and move on. The Adventures in the Magic Kingdom. I think it's overlooked compared to all the other Disney Capcom games. There's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of like really nice quality ones. It's neat because you travel around the Magic Kingdom and it's like kind of like mini games and small stages. Like in particular, the Ghost level is just it's so good. But yeah, there's a lot of other overlooked games on the NES. Do you guys have any suggestions?
Love to hear what you guys think in the comments. Do you like this kind of video?
These are the top 5 PlayStation 1 RPGs. If you disagree, let me know. The Little Mermaid. I hate water levels. I hate water levels! But this game is legit. It's super easy. It takes about an hour to run through the whole game. You fight some cool bosses and you square up against Ursula in the end, which is pretty awesome. Also, this music, Tiny Toons. Tiny Toons were super popular at the time when this came out, and this game is good, but it doesn't seem to get mentioned as much as other games on the system. The sprites in this game are large and beautiful for the NES, and they well represent their respective characters from the TV show, but somehow it's just not as popular as the other games we often see. If you're not getting your larynx crushed by Elmira, are you truly living? Top 5 NES games, like and subscribe for more content like this. If you don't agree with my number 1 pick, let me know in the comments. Which one do you think should be number 1? Top 5 Super Nintendo games. Like and subscribe for more content like this. If you don't like my choice for number 1, let me know in the comments below. Top 5 PS1 games that aren't RPGs. If you enjoyed this content, check out some of my other videos, like and subscribe for more like this. Wario's Woods. Dr. Mario? Sure, you've played it. Tetris? Probably on the Game Boy. But you may have missed out on Wario's Woods. It plays a little differently than the other two as you take Toad up and down the sides of monsters to glorify them to the bomb god. But it's addictive fun, and graphically, it's lovely. It was one of the last games officially released for the NES.
There are several other things he can do with this game besides just Sephirothing enemies. Or play a nice game of whack.
Playing a game of whack here. Whack.
Thanks, Gyro. With these powers, I'll truly become the monster I meant to be.
There's no friggin' way that's Obama. Why would that be classic rock?
You don't have to do this.
This is supposed to be like a family get-together.
Sorry, guys. Oh no.
Don't do it.
It's totally inappropriate.
Earthbound is a unique RPG for the Super Nintendo set in a modern day world instead of a fantasy or sci-fi setting like Final Fantasy or Phantasy Star of its day. This sets it apart from most other RPGs at the time, which were typically set in those medieval or futuristic worlds. Another unique aspect about Earthbound is its offbeat sense of humor. The game is filled with quirky characters and bizarre enemies, and the dialogue is often humorous and self-aware. I can still get many laugh-out-loud moments out of the game, even after years and repeats of playing it. The game is crafted with a distinct and memorable personality that sets it apart from other RPGs. Earthbound features a unique combat system that is based on the character's emotion. Different emotions can affect the character's stats and abilities in battle, which adds an interesting layer of strategy to the game. The scrolling HP bar can come in handy at times, and the weird use of items like rulers in battle to affect enemies is funny, but also competently implemented. It's all fun in games until Ness gets homesick thinking about his mom and gets a whiff of whatever you named your favorite food and misses a turn. Mother. Super Mario RPG is stellar. It combines the familiar world of the Super Mario series with the gameplay mechanics of a role-playing game. This creates a unique and enjoyable experience for players, particularly those who are fans of the Mario universe. One of the things that makes Super Mario RPG so worth that expensive price is the combat system. The game uses a turn-based combat system which, like any RPG, allows players to strategically plan their attacks and use special abilities to defeat enemies. To accompany the standard fare turn-based RPG mechanics, players can use timed attacks to do some extra damage to their enemies. They can also do this to prevent damage to themselves. It is wildly satisfying to do this in combat. It's really surprising. Beating the absolute tarnation out of enemies with a frying pan, a froggy stick, some cymbals, or a chain chomp just it feels so good. This keeps the combat super engaging.
Astral. I used to own this game. Much like many other games on this list, I was interested in it after seeing the beautiful sprite work in video game magazines back in the day. I was super jealous that it never came out for the PS1, which I had as a young man. Unfortunately, my parents just couldn't afford a PS1 and a Saturn both, they could barely afford a PS1. But I cast my lot with a PS1, and I don't really regret it by any means. But this is a game that I certainly feel I missed out on. I've only played the game briefly to test it back when I owned it, and I always intended to play more, but I sold it before I did. This is certainly one that I'd love to sit down and play through one day, and I'd love to have it sitting on my shelf again, despite it not having some kind of like spine art. It's real weird. Look it up. Astral goes for about $100 now complete. Legend of Oasis. Legend of Oasis has a beautiful art style that I have appreciated for many years. I kept seeing this game in magazines, and I always thought the sprites looked incredible, and the game looks super fun in general. It looks like it plays like Zelda, some sort of action-adventure game. I actually did own this game at one point, years ago, but I ended up selling it like the rest of my Sega Saturn collection simply because I didn't really want to collect for Saturn at the time.
I am never going to financially recover from this.
And the games were just worth so much money, and it was difficult to pass up on that kind of cash at the time. Either way, I'm sort of regretting it now, as this is one I'd really like to sit down and get through. The Legend of Oasis goes for about $150 complete. Magic Knight Rayearth. More than perhaps any other retro game ever, I want Magic Knight Rayearth. This game is flat out gorgeous, from its pixel art to the cutscenes to the game box itself, despite the price of Panzer Dragoon Saga, and everybody freaks out about it, right? I think that Magic Knight Rayearth is the pinnacle of Sega Saturn gaming. It's like the game to have. Maybe this has to do with me not buying this game when I could have gotten it for $200. I remember sitting on my phone thinking about it, but then I passed.
I am never going to financially recover from this.
$200 is a lot of money, folks. I couldn't just spend that. But looking back now, I wish I would have maybe I could have sold the catalytic converter off my car, or half my wardrobe, which was worth nothing, or just something. Maybe I could have sold blood plasma. I don't know, whatever it takes.
If your dog gets lost, you don't look for an hour and then call it quits. You get your out there and you find that dog.
Oh, he's so hungry. Have 15 mushrooms. Oh, shove 15 mushrooms in your mouth and just get wild as a buck. Come on, Spikey. He's like, oh yeah, I ate this mushroom. Oh yeah, Spikey the cocaine clown.
Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. It's hard not to recommend that game. I love Zelda. I do.
Good. Admitting it is the first step.
And I wish I could exclude it because it's kind of expensive, but man, it's worth it. It's worth the money for sure. This game has a lot of time that you can put into it. You can go for the completionist setup. You can go for speed running, that sort of thing. It has great graphics, great controls, just great everything. Great sprite work, great colors. It's so good. Great music. Everything's so good about this game.
Great, grand, wonderful.
It's one of the best Zelda games ever, and one of the best games ever. I've heard many people cite The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past as their favorite game of all time, and that's fair. If you're going to have a Super Nintendo, you have to have A Link to the Past. It's iconic. For a less obvious response, I'm going to go with The Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse. Man, I really love this game. This is nostalgic, obviously, but if I were collecting, if I were I'm going to rebuy Super Nintendo games with $100, I would totally go for this game, because I can sit down and play this game at any point. I can just turn it on, start playing, and enjoy the heck out of it. It's so good. It's a great Capcom platformer. It's a great cartoon game. It's got Mickey Mouse in it. That's so cool. Mickey Mouse gets a turban and he shoots magic. It's really neat. It's got Pete, and he's like a spider boss, and he's walking around on the screen or whatever. It's neat. There's just a lot of cool things, a lot of cool bosses, a lot of cool... the controls are good. Everything's good. Good concepts. Mickey Mouse is changing into different costumes. It's kind of like he's Mega Man getting new powers or something. It's neat. It's really cool. Number 1, you gotta own Super Mario World. You have to have Super Mario World. It's such... it's just the best. It's the best. It's just so good. It's a wonderful game. It's so colorful. It's so bright. It's so replayable. It's just so iconic. If you're going to talk about Super Nintendo with people, man, you gotta talk Super Mario World. So many people have experienced this game. It was just... it was incredible when it came out. What else is going to keep Sonic the Hedgehog at bay but Super Mario World?
Sonic is not a threat. He's on our side.
Yeah, it's just so fun. Even by today's standards, it's so fun. I played it a while back on stream. I raced somebody, and it was like riding a bicycle. I hadn't played that game in years, and it was just entranced and getting through the game. It was crazy good, crazy good.
you enjoy just grinding your face off, then you're going to love these top 5 RPGs for the NES. If you like this content, hit like and subscribe, and that will actually decrease the chances of random battles. Virtual Bart. There's a lot of crappy stuff about this game, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's problems with it, right? But there's a lot of fun with it as well. Particularly the tomato throwing game. Oh my goodness. You know what? It's actually worth playing this game just to see the interpretations of the Simpsons world in this game. There's a lot of beautiful art in this game, some big sprites and neat cutscenes, but really the fun is in, again, that tomato game. I'm not really sure which one was more critically acclaimed at its time between this and Bart's Nightmare, but it could have just been the oversaturation of Simpsons game that left this one off people's radars. But I'm telling you, being able to toss a tomato and absolutely lamb blast people, Hail Mary from behind the bushes and nail somebody feels fantastic. So, yeah, go to practice mode, try that out. It's fun. It's fun. What better way to take out your aggressions than to absolutely smash somebody in the face with a tomato, right? Battletoads and Double Dragon. Punch your friend in the face. That's the important part. If I have friends that come over and want to play retro games together, I highly recommend this game. It's so funny. It's too funny to see people get triggered by the mess that is 2 people trying to navigate the difficulty of this game. You can turn it on so you can't punch each other, but where's the fun in that? It's like watching crabs trying to climb out of a bucket. Nobody can get ahead because someone is constantly pulling them down. I can't think of a game so infuriatingly funny.
Hit me in the ear!
Please, I implore you, play this game. It is hilarious, and it's actually it's super fun. It's super fun.
Braindead 13. Dragon's Lair style adventures were certainly not as popular at this point in time, but that didn't stop the creators of Braindead 13 from, giving it a go. It's like a goofy horror cartoon version of Dragon's Lair. It was heavily advertised in magazines, and it came out for the 3DO, the PC, the PS1, and the Saturn at the time, and maybe a few others. It came out for so many different systems. But I don't think this game ever got much traction in the market, despite all the advertising. Years ago, I had to search for a long time to find a complete copy on eBay. On eBay! That's weird to think about that. It was difficult to find a complete copy of a game on eBay. That's rare. I would argue that's rare. It's not terribly expensive, but it was difficult to find. I recommend it if you like Dragon's Lair. It's literally the same thing as Dragon's Lair, just with like a new coat of paint. It's just a different skin, basically. A lot of RPGs, a lot of racing games, stuff like that, fighting games were happening. And that really put this one under the radar, because it's like, well, who's going to play Dragon's Lair still?
Demon's Crest. Maybe it's the name Demon in the title?
That is heresy.
But this game is a fantastic Capcom action platformer. Maybe it's good. It does have some issues, like it can be a little cryptic about where you go next. But with the guide, no shame in using a guide, right? It's a ton of fun. As for why it's overlooked, I'll be honest, I'm not terribly sure. People know that it exists, and they know that it's expensive, but it just doesn't seem to pop up on as many top 10s as it should. It could be the difficulty, sure, or it could be how cryptic it is, sure, but man, it is totally worth your time. I would almost venture to say that it's worth the price.
Fighting Force. By the time Fighting Force came out, the side-scrolling beat-em-ups were starting to get a little stale. They're starting to settle down a bit. As I recall, my buddies and I were highly anticipating this game, and we absolutely loved it when it came out. The only issue we had with this game was the length of it. In similar beat-em-up fashion, it doesn't take too long to beat this game. Still, if you're a fan of the genre, this is where it had evolved to by the PlayStation era, and it's certainly worth your time to try it out. I don't hear too many people making mention over this game anymore. There's just been such a resurgence of beat-em-ups in the last few years, and most of those is on like the pixel style and that sort of setup, so there's just not a whole lot of fuss about this game, and it's kind of, again, flying under radars. It's kind of overlooked.
The Treasure of Sierra Madrock. Flintstones party! Woo! Nobody parties like the Flintstones party. They can make your bed rock, but don't. Oddly enough, the setup for this game is roll the dice and get a random stage or minigame, and that works well. That works weirdly well in this game. Part of the appeal of this game is the graphics, honestly. For the Super Nintendo, it's crazy authentic to the original Flintstones show. It's easy to see why this was overlooked. It was just ahead of its time before the Mario mechanic became super popular. Other games did it before, of course, but this game did it super well. I highly recommend checking this out, particularly if you're a fan of the source material and if you like Mario Party. Why not just travel back to the past? Just travel back to the past and roll some rocks with the Flintstones or something. I don't know, it's good. It's good, check it out.
Jumping Flash. I've been waiting for a good reason to talk about this game. Let's get this out of the way. The graphics are just wildly outdated. It can certainly be disorienting if you're like jumping around as this robot rabbit in this 3D space that's kind of weird to navigate anyway. But geez, this is a fun platformer. It's such an oddity for a concept. A robot rabbit that jumps and shoots fireworks. I've defended this game for years as a fun one since I originally played it when it came out. Again, I saw this one on a demo disc and I was flabbergasted as to how open and free each level was and how fun traversal looked in the game. I stand by it. It's still fun to mess around with, and it's certainly not too expensive yet. This game is playable on the new PlayStation systems with PlayStation Plus, so if you want to save a few bucks, try it out there. I think it's totally worth the digital price, and if you like it enough, it might be worth investing in the lovely long box version of it for your physical collection.
Looney Tunes B-Ball. I hate sports games. I wish I could combine guns and basketball more often, right?
Yosemite Sam! It's Yosemite Sam! Yeah, Yosemite Sam!
Look no further, friends. Looney Tunes B-Ball is an arcade basketball game that's silly and fun, but it can still be competitive, which is, neat. The character abilities in the game truly make it memorable. It's likely overlooked because, well, it's a sports game, and hey, it's not NBA Jam. This game is super fun, and then, of course, there's Yosemite Sam, which is kind of makes it for me.
Mega Man 8 on the PlayStation 1 is an overlooked game. It is one of the least appreciated Mega Man games. It's got this weird sort of cartoon graphics going on, which I actually really liked. I thought it was great. It has some interesting voice acting, and I have to admit, I absolutely loved it. It has these like soft kind of cartoon looking graphics as opposed to the sharp pixels that we were getting before the Pokies on Mega Man, and then it suddenly became smooth in the PlayStation 1 as part of the upgrading graphics. I mean, I would call it an upgrade. It's a game that's polarizing for Mega Man fans, and as a Mega Man fan myself, it's actually one of my favorites because it's kind of weird, it's kind of different for a mainstream Mega Man game. The sprites have absolutely gorgeous animation. They have such nice, smooth animations. The characters actually like flow when they walk, which is again weird from like the sort of like do. The artwork is incredible. Everything about the game is really pretty. It looks like a cartoon. It looks like you're playing Mega Man the cartoon.
The N64 had a very small library and saw a lot of the top shelf games on that system worth a little bit of money. Here are 5 commonly owned games for the N64 that you might actually own that are worth some money.
Which one of you jokers goes by the name Mario? It's me. Can you step outside, please? Welcome to Mario Party, where you and 3 friends battle it out.
Yo, listen up. We will not live in a 2-dimensional world. We won't go in one direction or see where we can stand. We will walk through walls. We will take...
Now in exactly 1 minute and 13 seconds, I'm going to drive my go-kart between 2 carriages of a speeding train.
If you found that this information was helpful to you, help me out. Give me a follow, give me a subscribe. I'd appreciate you. Many articles on the internet would have you believing that every game that you have for the NES is worth a ton of money. Here's some games that are common that you might actually have and what they're worth.
Legend of Zelda continues. Defeat your enemies and save the kingdom. We will. Some will help you, others.
You are playing with power.
Punch Out by Nintendo. 11 world-class contenders.
Challenge is Metroid. The power is Nintendo. Defend the planet Cephas against the evil Mother Brain. It's survival or destruction.
If you found that this information was helpful to you, help me out. Give me a follow, give me a subscribe. I'd appreciate you.
Crusader of Sinti is like A Link to the Past Sega style, with some impressive character animations and larger sprites, and that blapping but banging Sega Genesis music. If Link could speak to animals like, I don't know, Dr. Dootingle or something, this game would be spot on. The biggest difference, in my opinion, is using animals to accomplish things like opening doors and pathways, fighting enemies sometimes. You get to a point that you can't speak to humans anymore early in the game, and you have to rely on animals for information. That's like hard mode Dr. Dolittle. But you see the similarity. You get it. Chris Stylus for the NES is a wild ride. It's got everything. It's got magic, swords, robots, dragons, and more. It's like someone took a bunch of fantasy tropes and threw them all into a blender. You know what? It works. The gameplay itself is a bit challenging, but that's part of what makes it so satisfying. You've got to collect different swords and magic spells to defeat the baddies and progress through the game. It's like Zelda meets Final Fantasy meets Mega Man with a dash of weirdness thrown in for good measure. You know what the weirdness is? The plot. It's like someone got buck wild on LSD and wrote a fantasy novel. You play as a feller who wakes up in a post-apocalyptic world and has to save the planet from some evil not dragon named Dragon. Along the way, you'll meet a bunch of interesting choices and characters, like a talking tree and a woman who turns into a bird. Awesome. RPGs are expensive, typically, and it's a freaking wonder this game is at $200. Surely it won't remain cheap this much longer. Drop $20 on it, never regret it. It's much safer and cheaper than LSD. Cyber Shadow is an action platformer from the same folks responsible for Shovel Knight, and oh baby. The story is, I suppose, forgettable. I don't remember literally anything from the story. Maybe it was the COVID fever dreams I was dealing with at the time, but the gameplay more than made up for it. The gameplay outshines the story 10-1. What's important is that the gameplay is that good. I don't come to games like these going, man, I hope this is a great story. I really want to feel some cathartic moment. Nah, I want refined combat that's reminiscent of retro gaming, but more fair and clever, as it should be, given the time developers have had to look back at these old games and go, you know what, this would have made Ninja Gaiden that much better. Then it was Tom Kenny, okay. Was he in part 2 or no? Come on now. What is that thing? Alright. Look at this nasty thing. Oh my god! Oh. Audio is top notch, you're top notch. You better shut that face where I come kiss it. Come me by here. We got 1300 gold, a magic shield, or death. Would you like to purchase death? 7 cents, I think. Dark Souls, holy moly. There we go, look at that. See, how was I supposed to know that was a ladder? I thought it was just part of the background. Crap. Oh, there we go. Take my magic up too, that's good. Don't try too hard. These guys really don't want me to do well. Like, they don't want me to go out and fix this world or whatever. They're like, yeah, give it an okay shot. Give it a reasonable shot. And if it doesn't work out, it's all good. It's all good. Only the sequel to Draken was a major hidden gem for me. I had avoided this game because I didn't like the cover art or the map traversal look at first, but now it has really got its hooks in me. The dialogue in the game is campy and fun. The story is simple, but it is compelling. The action is solid enough to keep me wanting to get in battles. I think that's the marking of a good game, when you literally just try to get in battles. It's a fun combat system. I love the side-scrolling fighting going on, just flapping my sword desperately at moths, and then I also really enjoyed seeing the boss sprites, and it really had me invested in the game. Though I haven't finished it yet, I can't see how it would outstay its short 10-hour runtime. This game is absolutely worth your time if you're into action RPGs. And the shortest RPG on the Super Nintendo, Draken. Despite being set in a fantasy world, following a group of adventurers as they battle against a growing evil that threatens to destroy the land, yeah, big surprise, we haven't heard that one before, Draken just doesn't look appealing to me, in any sense. Well, I mean, the Mode 7 looking areas are kinda neat, but the rest looks pretty rough. I know these games appeal to certain people, but that person is certainly not me. Managing the party and menus doesn't look fun, it looks tedious. Watching the battle play out before you is like watching a bunch of kids beat on a piñata out of turn. It's just chaos. It's wild looking. Clocking in under 5 hours. It's the shortest Super Nintendo RPG, but I think I would rather watch, like, I don't know, the American Pie trilogy or something rather than play Draken. The soundtrack successfully captures the adventurous and whimsical spirit of the DuckTales franchise, enhancing the gameplay experience and immersing players in the world of Scrooge McDuck and his nephews. This, of course, isn't any different than DuckTales 1, really. since the music in it is unreal. But maybe part of that is ode to nostalgia. I certainly enjoy the soundtrack still, but I forgot how awesome the castle theme is in DuckTales 2. Some levels have alternate paths that you don't have to take, but you can. Some levels just have extra characters on them, like Bubba stuck in the ice. It doesn't serve a lot of purpose to my understanding. Funny enough, I thought Bubba was a bee back in the day, like he was stuck in there and he was a bee that would buzz around. I really don't know why I thought that, but I feel compelled to save Bubba. Earthbound. Oh, baby. I've talked about it so many times before, I just can't stop talking about it. Eat burgers, fight cops, frying pans, hippies, teleport from desert to a lost world. Earthbound is a game as big as the name indicates, and the runtime is no slouch either. Taking around 30 or so hours to beat, there's no way you're going to think that this game is that long. This game is so incredibly well paced and fun that the game is over before you know it. It's truly, again, a unique experience, and it's deserving of your time and money, even today. Albert Odyssey. After I discovered the magic of RPGs back with Dragon Warrior, Final Fantasy VI or 3 or whatever you want to call it for the Super Nintendo, Super Mario RPG, I was an addict. I just couldn't get enough of it. I just wanted to play every RPG that I could get my hands on. Seeing that big freaking dragon on the ad for this game had me tore up like a soup sandwich. Gosh, just so cool looking. I wanted that. Like heavy breathing on the window sort of want. Unfortunately, I never saw this game even available anywhere for purchase during its retail cycle. Saturn was a little obscure in my area. I mean, I didn't have a Saturn anyway, so it didn't matter, but it would have at least been cool to look at it.
And this is where I'd put a trophy. If I had one!
What I've played of this game is super slow-paced. I mean, it's a traditional RPG from the 90s. Of course it's slow. But I think if I owned it, I could force myself to grind through the battles and encounter rates just to take in the RPG that I never even had the chance of playing back in the day. It'd be nice. Albert Odyssey goes for about $300. Ugh.
I don't think I played this game. You know what, let's try it again actually. Boom, boom, boom. We're going to have to land this bad boy, I think. Get him! Get him! Can I crash it into him, you think? You underestimate my power. There he is! There he is! See him? No, Zach! I'll kill him for you, baby. Oh, I killed him! I killed him! Dude, I flew the plane into him and I killed him. Oh my goodness. We're going down. Abandoned ship, abandoned ship.
Lufia and the Fortress of Doom. Certainly a middle-of-the-road sort of game, Lufia doesn't do the best at anything on the Super Nintendo, really. I personally really enjoy the sprite work and the quirky dialogue here, but these are done better elsewhere. I think the most unique-looking thing is the battle setup. Each character resting on their nameplates on the screen, and the large sprites in the battle is sort of a neat battleground setup. I would wager to think that at least 10 or so hours of this game could be removed if the encounter rate was lowered just a tiny bit, please. There are so many random encounters in this game, it is absolutely relentless. Either way, Lufia is about 27 hours, and I honestly believe if you're going to sink that much time into an RPG, you should probably just look to other games like Lufia 2.
Lunar, Silver Star story complete. Honestly, what makes this game worth so much money is probably that excellent packaging coupled with a strong game. The game came with an art book and a cloth map, a beautiful box, and the soundtrack and disc for the making of this version of Lunar from Working Designs. Yes, Working Designs. That's why it's expensive. The soundtrack is a banger as the music absolutely rocks. I actually ended up listening to the CD back in the day on my CD player when I wasn't playing the game. Whew. That's some nostalgia. The game itself isn't terribly long, but that's perfectly fine. It's not going to waste your time. The art is beautiful and bright. The cutscenes and characters are unforgettable, despite it being a pretty standard fare story for RPG.
Alright, for a less obvious response, for a less iconic response, but it's still very, very popular. That's Mega Man X. This game is great. Honestly, Mega Man X is probably the best Mega Man game. Come at me, bro. The bosses are fantastic. The game is great. The controls are just
bar none, man. They're so good. Just the dashing, the jumping, it's fast, it's fantastic. The difficulty level is just right where it needs to be. The game is, when you think Mega Man, you should think Mega Man X. The Twisted Tales of Spike McFain. Listen, this game is Zelda, but with a vampire. To be fair, this game isn't as popular as The Legend of Zelda, and it's simply just not as good, honestly. But getting associated with Zelda isn't necessarily a bad thing, is it? The gameplay simply isn't as tight. That's fair. The story isn't as wonderful as The Legend of Zelda is. But it's still a good game, and that's worth your time. It really is. If you haven't played through every other Zelda, play Zelda. If you have played through every other Zelda, and try out the Twisted Tales of Spike McFain. It's probably going to be worth your time.
Soul Blazer. This was the beginning of a series of short RPGs on the Super Nintendo. Soul Blazer is an action RPG which is honestly rather fast and frantic. The game follows the journey of a hero sent by a goddess to restore the world and save its inhabitants from an evil being known as Death Toll. The standout concept of Soul Blazer is exploring a series of interconnected dungeons to release souls and restore parts of the world. It has some early Super Nintendo graphics which are a bit rough by today's and, well, the rest of the series standards, but you'll only be feasting your eyes on them for less than 11 hours or so typically. While they may be the weakest in the series with Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, and Terranigma, it's totally worth designating 10 or so hours to. Tecmo, Secret of the Stars, as classic role-playing game as it comes, released for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System in 1995, this game features a traditional turn-based combat system, a pretty typical story, and some dated but colorful graphics. The story of the game follows the journey of two brothers, Leon and Maxim, as they travel across a vast world to discover the secrets behind a mysterious crystal. The most unique thing about the game is probably the ability to switch between the two brothers at will. While it is not as well known as some of the other RPGs on the Super Nintendo, Tecmo Secret of the Stars might be worth playing if you played all the other heavy hitter RPGs on the Super Nintendo, and if you have 27 hours to kill.
Make sure you check out.
Oh, what's this one? Oh, this is Sonic the Hedgehog from Sega Genesis. Hey, look at these.
Go to an island. Before you can go to the island and get into it, you have to have the deed. To get the deed, you have to go to the lady on Windfall Island. In order to get the deed from the lady on Windfall Island, you have to give her 21 joy pendants, which you find throughout the world. In order to give her the joy pendants, first you have to find some kids playing hide and seek. Then you hide and seek, give her the 21 joy pendants, then she gives you a deed, then you go back to the other island, then you do a maze, and then you get the shard. That is stupid. That is stupid. It's frustrating, it's dumb, and I don't like it. I love it. Mini games aren't worth the price that's asked of them, but I would argue that some games get pretty close. You're not worth $300. You're not worth $5. And you're not worth $150. And you're worthless too. Now this one? Maybe.
Ys 3, Wanderers from Ys. Ys is such a long-running series, and a surprising short runtime for most of the games. I guess that's the case with most action RPGs like this one, but the fast-paced, side-scrolling action of Ys 3 keeps it fresh for the entirety of its length. The game is a continuation of the Ys series, and follows the journey of Adol Kristen as he travels to a new land and battles against an ancient evil. Just absolutely run at breakneck speeds, side-scrolling, side-scrolling, side-scrolling. It's awesome. You just speed through, slashing the absolute devil out of everything. It is a glorious time doing it. Enjoy that glory for the whopping 6 hours or so that it lasts. 3D Game Heroes. 3D Game Heroes is a love letter to retro video games. I mean, look at this thing. The game takes place in the kingdom of Dotnia, which is in peril after the evil Dark Lord Onyx steals 6 magical orbs that keep the kingdom's peace and prosperity. These 6 orbs operate much like any other Zelda game, where you need to go to dungeons and collect each orb, solving puzzles along the way, exploring each dungeon, and killing a boss at the end of each section. Along the journey, the hero gains, well, new weapons and abilities, how about that, such as a boomerang and bombs, and these are essential to progressing, much like in Zelda. These dungeons are scattered around on a, of course, Zelda-looking map. There's a desert temple, there's a forest temple, well, I mean, you get the idea. Alundra. If you're looking for some more mature themes, maybe some more emotional depth than the typical old school Zelda games, check this one out. It's like a dark, broody Zelda spin-off, more akin in tone to like Majora's Mask or Twilight Princess, focusing on death, loss, and redemption. Nevertheless, I think Zelda fans will see the similarities here and appreciate it. Animaniacs for the Super Nintendo. Based on the popular TV show of the same name, the game features Yakko, Wacko, and Dot as they embark on a wacky adventure through various levels inspired by episodes from the show. There's a lot of pop culture references along the way. Bright and colorful graphics in the game capture the show's zany humor and charm perfectly. One of the game's highlights is the inclusion of mini-games inspired by classic arcade games such as Pac-Man and Space Invaders. While it can be tougher than a person who got tough after the going got, some folks might appreciate the challenge and sense of accomplishment that comes with the turbo tunnels of Battletoads while, chasing a rabbit through the woods. For $12, it's sort of wacko not to buy a copy.
Asty & Axe is a cheap game for the NES that is absolutely worth the money. I'll share the value of the game at the end of the video, so make sure that you stick around. And of course, for more content like this, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much. Asty & Axe is a side-scrolling action game for the NES that's so hard a cat couldn't scratch it. The story makes about as much sense as it needs to. You're a high school kid who gets transported to some evil world and some evil purple dude wants you to die. Sword and axe your way through the ever-respawning denizens of darkness to fight wild-looking bosses at the end of each level, slay a big dragon in the end, and fall in love with the fairy, I guess. That's Asty & Axe, but as an NES game for under $10, you can't beat it. Oh my lord. Oh lord. Oh my goodness. Oh my god, they're everywhere. Oh my. Look at this. This is tough. Ooh. There was a that guy was just like suicide bombing himself. I gotta get that flame while Batman climbs up there, man. I gotta get
Beavis and Butthead for the Sega Genesis. What a trip down memory lane. I mean, who wouldn't want to spend hours playing a game based on two socially inept, barely literate teenagers who were more interested in fire and music videos and scoring than anything else? The gameplay is where this really shines. It's an odd but awesome mix of action and adventure that's akin to a point and click, coincidentally. I mean, what's not to love about a game where you get to ride a rascal through a hospital, shoot spitballs, cook French fries, and rat burgers? It's classic Beavis and Butthead stuff. All in all, if you're looking for a game that will make you laugh, cringe, and maybe even teach you a thing or two about cooking on the fly, Beavis and Butthead for the Sega Genesis is definitely one down, and it's still under $20 for a loose cart. And that's a steal.
Oh, that's messed up. I don't want to see it.
You got my message. You, wanted to see me, sir? Better yet. I want to...
I don't know why you have to have every conversation on video.
Because we're making it...
Whoa, boys. Hey now. Chill. Whew. There's a bullet. What the fudge was that? Oh my goodness. I said fudge.
And it's all because of me that we're here now. Hungry and cold.
Is that where I came down? Okay, what? Jesus Christ, Shelly! Oh my goodness, you monster! Oh my... Oh... Oh, my wife is... If we're going to continue to do this, we're going to have to get some, like, what's that called? They stab the needle in your heart to get you going again. Oh, that's messed up. I don't want to see it.
You got my message. You, wanted to see me, sir? Better yet. I want to...
I don't know why you have to have every conversation on video.
Because we're making it...
Whoa, boys. Hey now. Chill. Whew. There's a bullet. What the fudge was that? Oh my goodness. I said fudge.
And it's all because of me that we're here now. Hungry and cold.
Is that where I came down? Okay, what? Jesus Christ, Shelly! Oh my goodness, you monster! Oh my... Oh... Oh, my wife is... If we're going to continue to do this, we're going to have to get some, like, what's that called? They stab the needle in your heart to get you going again.
Breath of Fire, clocking in around the same time as other heavy hitters on the Super Nintendo like Earthbound. Breath of Fire is a classic RPG game released for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System in 1994. When I played through this game, I used a fast forward feature on emulation to get through the many random encounters, and I found this way of playing the game to be super enjoyable. The game isn't going to change lives, at least not nowadays, but it's good enough. The game follows the journey of Ryu, a young boy who can turn into a dragon, thus, the Breath of Fire, as he seeks to uncover the secrets of his heritage and save the world from a growing evil. The standout feature in Breath of Fire is the combat system, which combines traditional turn-based battles with the ability to transform into a powerful dragon. Players can use Ryu's dragon powers to unleash devastating attacks and gain new abilities, toasting enemies on the field with your, you guessed it, your Breath of Fire. When you jump in this game, it's like the earth is doubly interested in having you attached to it.
You're going nowhere.
You fall so incredibly immediately when jumping. It's honestly abrupt and a little unnatural. I realize this is a weird way of describing a video game where you play as an anthropomorphic rabbit. I mean, how natural can this really be, right? But either way, it's odd. In most platformers, there's more of like a float when you jump. This doesn't hinder the platforming too bad though.
Before you buy more games, go to Facebook and follow this Cheap Gamer website. They consistently post throughout the day deals on video games, physical and digital, and video game related toys and hardware. Don't miss out on this excellent opportunity to stay up to date on the best deals out there. For more tips like this, be sure to check out my other YouTube shorts and, of course, hit that like and subscribe button for a bit of good luck.
Castlevania 3. And this game is par for the course. I expected this game to be fantastic because I've played most Castlevania games, but something that surprised me was how much more accessible it was when I played it on the Switch using save states. I did it. This game always gave me trouble when I played it before. I tried not to use save states too terribly often so I could get a decent feel for the original experience of it, but it was certainly welcomed to be able to tackle this game in a much more modern style. I get that not everyone likes save states. I've even been guilty of that myself. I understand that it's an incredible achievement to beat some of these games without save states. But folks, I'm a middle-aged man who's not getting any better at video games. Castlevania for the Nintendo 64. The game that people think sucked the life out of Dracula himself. But don't worry folks, it's not all bad news. The good news is that it's cheap. The N64 had some rough-looking fog going on. There's absolutely no denying that. That's part of the charm of the system. That's just how it is. There's time that the controls feel like you're trying to teach a monkey how to juggle. The jumping is a little floaty at times. The attacks feel a little sluggish. The camera is about as useful as a chocolate teapot. But hey, at least it's not as frustrating as trying to solve a Rubik's Cube with a blindfold, right? The music isn't typically associated with the best of Castlevania, but hey, it's not bad. When you accidentally fall off a ledge for the 100th time or attempt a boss and finally defeat it, it makes you feel like you are the certified vampire slayer. All in all, Castlevania 64 is like that weird cousin you only see at family reunions. Sure, they're a little rough around the edges, but they have their moments of charm, right? For $26, give Castlevania 64 a spin.
Not all RPGs are expensive like this one. I have a stack of cheap RPGs from this last system or the system before, and I want to show those to you. These are all under $20, and a lot of them are under $10. Here we go. Yeah, South Park. We got Persona 5, Alpha Protocol, Dragon Age Origins, Final Fantasy Type 0, Star Ocean, Last Hope, yes, Final Fantasy 13, Residence of Fate, Infinite, oh Lord of the Fallen, oh my Lord. We have Infinite Undiscovery, and then we have Lost Odyssey. Not all RPGs have to be expensive. There's a lot of good ones out there right now that are cheap. I suggest you pick those up while you have a chance. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you like and subscribe. Ridiculous. Theme park Allison.
This much.
Campaign 10?
No, that's too low. No, that's too low.
I seriously lets me like bargain with him.
Yeah, I don't need business from cheapskates. Get out.
He kicked me out. Oh, this guy knows me in real life.
It's difficult to say whether any RPG will ever be able to truly capture the sense of nostalgia and wonder that Chrono Trigger evokes. But one thing is for sure, The game's legacy will continue to inspire game developers for years to come, and many will continue to lie in its wake as it interjects itself relentlessly into the mind and conversation of every RPG gamer who has ever had the blessing of experiencing this majesty. The conclusion that we're all too happy to draw is that we're complacent, or a step further, we're even elated to continue chasing that dragon in hopes that one day another experience will give us the same satisfaction that this seemingly perfect realization of form has ingrained in the annals of video game history, irrevocably tainting or blessing the continued flow of time and influence from its inception to its eventual cessation.
Blazing Dragons. Blazing Dragons is a point-and-click adventure. I always thought this game looked like a cartoon, and as a fan of point-and-click adventures, I was sold. You play as a dragon adventure dude in a sort of role reversal setup where the Knights of the Round Table are dragons instead, and you're trying to help them prevent humans from taking over the kingdom. When the king sends his knights away, they all end up stuck in some bizarre situation that you have to help them escape. As you're intending to win the princess's hand in marriage, it's up to you, the unlikely hero, to thwart the enemy's plans and save Camelot. Breath of Fire for the Super Nintendo. This makes it possible to play as a dragon. How cool is that? You actually get the breath of fire. This game has incredibly simple gameplay, but that also means that it's accessible. If you've never played an RPG before, this one will be fine for you to check out. Hey Bubba, where you at? There's a kitty cat. He's come to visit. He heard me talking. Hi Bubba. Hey handsome. I know. You like what? You like Breath of Fire too? He didn't hiss at me, which is pretty awesome. We're friends. Dragon Warrior is a pioneering role-playing game. It absolutely set the standard for what a console RPG would be. It popularized the genre in the West. Playing this game will give you the opportunity to experience the roots of RPGs. In all the modern RPGs, as much as I like to talk about Chrono Trigger and Earthbound and stuff, they all owe it to this one right here. Think about this game as the base and everything just built from this. Everything stems from this, like the world tree or something. It's wild, but it's totally worth your time. It's not a terribly long game. It is a very difficult game, but if I were going to play this game, I believe this is the version I would play, so you can see it at its absolute roots. One Extreme, or Extreme, I think it was just called Extreme before One Extreme happened. Once we got Two Extreme, this had to be One Extreme, I guess. Extreme sports should really just be called Extreme Concussions.
You alright? Coach said it's alright to bleed from the ears.
It is hilarious. Particularly if you're skating down the mountains or the hills or rolling roads, whatever, and you're hitting these gate posts along the way. That stuff is brilliant. Herc's Adventures. I imagine zombies ate my neighbors in 32-bit. This game stars Hercules and other Greek gods. Sounds amazing, right? That's not the fairest comparison, but it's not far off, really. This game has you playing cooperatively to travel around Greece and surrounding areas and fighting larger-than-life bosses, watching zany cutscenes, and enjoying some awesome graphics and goofy humor, and just generally having a good time. It's your job as Herc, Atlanta, or Jason to save all of Greece from Hades, who is making a power move. Along the way, you'll see some great cutscenes and wild voice acting from different Greek gods who want you to solve their issues along the way, and, given as fun as this game is, you'll be happy to.
Why did you put that weapon together so quickly, Go?
You tell me to, Drill Sergeant.
Kingsley's Adventure. Once upon a time in the quirky realm of the Fruit Kingdom, there lived a cunning little fox named Kingsley, whose dreams of knighthood would lead him through some foxholes to collect weapons in hopes of becoming a knight. Or, of becoming Link. He desperately wants to be Link, it seems. Bad Custard, the antagonist in this game, was expelled for turning the kingdom's delicacies into disasters.
Hey, Panini Head, are you listening to me? Yes. You're gonna kill someone. I'm eating here.
Overblood. Raz Carsey, the unfortunate protagonist of our game Overblood, wakes up in a cryogenic facility with a severe case of amnesia.
Tom lost part of his brain in a hunting accident. His memory only lasts 10 seconds.
I was in an accident? That's terrible.
Don't worry, you'll totally get over it in about 3 seconds.
Get over it? I mean, what happened? Did I get shot in the brain? Hi, I'm Tom.
This man can't remember how to walk right, he can't remember how to put his arms down, he can't remember much of anything, and that sucks. Imagine what it must have been like to wake up and realize, well, nothing.
I'm going on an adventure.
Phantasy Star for the Sega Master System. It's an RPG set in a futuristic universe, and it starts out right into the action, which is incredible. There's not a lot of backstory, there's not a lot of stuff going on here, it gets you right into it. There's a guy just literally like dying on the floor. But it's a wild journey where you can play as a lot of different characters. You can play as like a space cat. There's caves, incredible graphics, it's wild looking. Playing this game, I don't think you would believe it is as old as it is. It looks like someone from the future, looks like somebody today made a retro RPG. Quackshot. Donald Duck discovers a map in Scrooge's library and, he steals it. Yeah, that's definitely theft. But he thinks this is the path to riches. So he starts following the map to try to get rich. Of course, somehow Pete just happens to overhear this, and, in case we hadn't driven that point home yet, Pete is a duck. So naturally he follows Donald to try and steal that treasure that Donald is earning honestly by following the map he stole from Scrooge McDuck, who probably robbed it from a grave or something. The game, as you can clearly see, is a side-scroller, and despite it being an early Genesis game, I think it's lovely. The sprites look pretty stellar, really, and hold up on the Genesis. In the game, you adventure a little bit, traveling from place to place to obtain items that will let you move on to the next area. Although the game allows you to explore, there is really a pretty set path you have to follow, which sounds frustrating, and it can be, but it's probably worth it just to, take a moment, look up a suggested level order list or something, kind of like you might do nowadays with Mega Man. Throughout the game, Ramza is portrayed as an earnest and principled individual who embarks on a journey filled with, political scheming and violent conflicts. And these are the sort of things we all deal with as well, and these things test his moral fiber, and like it does ours. Despite the challenges he faces, Ramza he sticks to it, man. He's steadfast in his resolve to defy, I guess is the verb I'm looking for, to defy these corrupt and oppressive forces and to stay true to his beliefs. Ramza has an unwavering commitment to his principles, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. He just refuses to compromise his values even when it's in his best interest, honestly, to do so. And this determination is it's admirable. It's something that I'm sure we all wish we could do, like in the face of whatever comes at us, that if we could just stick to it, man, that'd be awesome. But it's not easy. Ramza Bale from Final Fantasy Tactics. Ramza, being the main character in Final Fantasy Tactics, is just undeniably one of the most beloved protagonists in the history of video games. The popularity of Final Fantasy Tactics has just continued to skyrocket, and so many people, including myself, cite it as one of their favorite games of all time. Ramza's unwavering commitment to justice and to righteousness has captured the hearts of just so many people, including myself. And his story is one that is both engaging and just endearing, not to mention inspiring. Red from the Pokemon series. When it comes to the Pokemon game series, there is just no denying the impact that Red has had on the franchise. As the protagonist, we follow his journey as he sets out to become Pokemon Master. And we get to share in his experiences as he discovers new species and such. It's fun. It's really neat. He battles gym leaders, and he uncovers hidden secrets along the way as well. There's a lot of cool things happening here. His progression from novice to skilled trainer mirrors our own growth as players, and his design has become a true symbol of the Pokemon trainer archetype. Shadow Hearts for the PlayStation 2. Much like its predecessor, Shadow Hearts delves into some pretty dark stuff, including the occult, supernatural, and, the scariest thing of all, personal struggles. The game's narrative is often emotionally intense and explores the complexity of people, the complexity of what it means to be a human being. The game takes place in an alternate version of the real world during the early 20th century, blending historical elements and supernatural and horror themes. The atmosphere in Shadow Hearts is one horror fans will absolutely adore, as its static pre-rendered backgrounds are just creepy looking, but the hauntingly beautiful soundtrack really adds to the aesthetic. And speaking of which, I love this spooky aesthetic. The text looks great, the graphics look great. It has the same energy as The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Although this is turn of the century stuff, it's a very gothic feeling. This game too incorporates psychological horror elements such as unsettling imagery, grotesque monsters, and just a ton of blood in the cutscenes. The game draws inspiration from the works of H.P. Lovecraft, known for his cosmic horror themes, and this influence is evident in the game's otherworldly creatures and eldritch-looking horrors. Silent Bomber. Where has this been all my life? This game was mentioned by someone in the comments of my previous video, and I'm super glad that I checked it out. Silent Bomber puts you in the shoes of Juta, I suppose, a war criminal who is now emotionless, which is fair given his voice acting compared to Other pretty solid voice acting in the game.
Each time I went into battle, another piece of my soul died.
He, and by extension you, have to place bombs to blow up targets and machines around the ship. Your sole purpose is to destroy the ship because it can destroy your allies. You find yourself running and jumping around a top-down map and using different types of bombs to destroy things on the ship. Suikoden 2 is the story of a young hero who gets caught up in a war between city-states. The game starts with the main character and his best friend participating in a military exercise that goes wrong.
Let's go bust some scuds!
Leading to a series of events that separate the two friends and put them on opposite sides of the conflict. The war escalates as political intrigue, betrayal, and the involvement of a mystical force known as the Beast Room come into play. The main character, now the leader of the Liberation Army, seeks to unite the city-states against the Highland Kingdom's aggression. Meanwhile, your buddy rises through the ranks in the Highland Kingdom, and this creates a personal and ideological conflict between the two former friends. Tenchu Stealth Assassins. Tenchu Stealth Assassins is the Assassin's Creed of its day. In a very, very good way, though. It's a stealth action game that has some tank controls, like Resident Evil, which is a little weird, but it's super simple enough to be really, really enjoyable. The game sets you with a little story after each stage that's fully voiced, which is super cool, but the voice acting in the game, the actual stages, is brutally bad.
It's safe inside my belly. You're not going to get it.
Chili, baby,
but in a good way. Toomba. Pink hair, don't care, baby. Toomba is an adventure platforming game, I would have called it, but it's been called open world Metroidvania as well. Even action RPG to some extent. This game is full of bright, colorful worlds and charm. My goodness, this game could steal your grandmother with this charm. You adventure through 2.5D lands solving puzzles, questing, and fighting to stop the evil swine people that are ruining everything. In this game you do a lot of jumping. You jump on this butt plant thing here. You jump on some pigs and give them a little, nibble nibble.
I'll make love to you.
You swing a chain. And it's intuitive and it's fun. Yoshi's Island. Yoshi's Island has a special chip on the card actually, and it makes some incredible cartoon-like graphics in this game. In this game you're trying to save baby Mario as Yoshi, and everything looks very storybook-like, and it is super appropriate for the content. There's a lot of impressive morphing and rotation going on in the game. You got bosses that are, willing to drop their drawers. That's scandalous.
Ow.
Yoshi's Safari. Now this is bad. This is so bad. But this, oh wow. This game was super early on in the Super Nintendo's lifespan. It doesn't use any sort of special carts or chip or anything, and it has these huge, beautiful monsters and this awesome Mode 7 stuff going on for the trail. This game used the Super Scope, which is a freaking monster of a gun, and it was one of the very few games that did use it. But it's a cool enough game to give it a try should you get the opportunity. And if you can afford to put batteries in this beast, holy smokes. Castle of Illusion. What a freaking classic game. Oh my goodness. Graphically, this game is not really impressive, but man, it drips nostalgia for me. This is some early Genesis stuff, and the graphics show it, but it is just sincere fun. The story finds Mickey trying to save Minnie from Miserabelle, a witch who is intent on sucking the life out of Minnie. Mickey is informed that he has to gather gems from some Masters of Illusion inside this castle to save Minnie, and this leads him to many different stages like a forest, a toyland, and the castle itself, along with a few others. Each stage is bright and beautiful, and you traverse it just dropping that thickness onto enemies. Or tossing apples or marbles at enemies.
Ow! Who throws a cupcake? Honestly.
Faye's journey is intertwined with socio-political themes, with war and religion and the exploitation of power. As he navigates these complex issues, he becomes a symbolic character embodying the struggles and triumphs of, I guess, what it means to be human, of the human condition. His character is both universal and deeply personal. His struggles are ours and his triumphs are ours, and they're a testament to the power of the human spirit. And his is a story that just resonates with players and continues to resonate with players and will will continue to resonate with players for years to come. It doesn't matter if you're a fan or not, you can't deny it. You can't deny it! This game follows the conflict between an eco-terrorist group, Avalanche, and the mega corporation Shinra Electric Power Company. The story takes a wild turn when Cloud Strife, the main character, a former soldier turned mercenary, joins Avalanche's fight against Shinra. As the story unfolds, the focus expands beyond Midgard, the city that you start, into a global scale, where Cloud and his peeps become embroiled in the battle against old Sephiroth, a former member of Soldier with a dark agenda to harness the power of the planet and to invade Smash Brothers or something. This guy's busy. Final Fantasy. This is where it all started, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that's not true. This is where Final Fantasy started, ladies and gentlemen. And if you played this game, you're going to see why it went on to become one of the biggest RPG series of all time. It's incredible. It's not the biggest, but it's one of the biggest RPG series of all time. And it all stemmed right there on the NES. Something I think you can appreciate about this game still is the complexity of the story. I expected it to be incredibly simple, but it's a lot wilder than I anticipated. Playing Final Fantasy will also get you jamming to those tunes, that sweet Final Fantasy music. Final Fantasy Tactics is a tactical RPG set in the war-torn kingdom of Ivalice. The story follows Ramza, a noble who gets caught up in a complex political and religious conflict. The game starts with a war of succession after the king dies, and these subsequent power struggles lead to a bunch of betrayals and conspiracies.
Long live the king.
As Ramza tries to uncover the truth behind the events unfolding in his country, he discovers a plot involving the manipulation of political figures by a shadowy church organization. The church wants to revive an ancient evil by exploiting the War of the Lions, the war that's currently going down, and using this chaos to further their own agenda.
Chaos is a ladder.
Fox Hunt. This full-motion video game was intended to be different from the others, and I have to admit that it is, to some extent. The game follows a dude who is obsessed with television shows, who gets recruited by CIA agents to stop a former Soviet TV producer from nuking the city of Los Angeles. What sets Fox Hunt apart is the quality of the videos, the humor, and the snappy gameplay style. The game loads choices really quickly, and I'm not sure what witchcraft these folks were using to make this magic happen, but it's mighty impressive when compared to other FMV games. The absolute absurdity of Fox Hunt is what makes it worth playing. One minute you're animatedly crying over your ex-girlfriend, and the next you're fighting off former classmates turned superheroes that, climb through your window to kill you, assassinate you, whatever. Goofy is, to be fair though, pretty doggone dumb. He's doing his best to keep his job, but then he finds himself daydreaming about these random points in history. And given the levels that we're exposed to, you would think that working day and night in a history museum would give him a little more to work with. But here we are. The professor, he's not real happy with Goofy because Goofy's been slacking. But that's what Goofy is. He's Goofy. And that includes this Goofy run. What could make Goofy's job harder or easier? How about this extendo arm? This thing, you would think, would be a little more fun to use, but I think this is eventually what would become the solid mechanic that was Mickey Mouse becoming a mountain climber. Goofy's hysterical history tour. Hey, this is a great example of 2 out of 3, it ain't bad. It might be goofy, it might be history, but it is not hysterical. This game is a bit rough. Something to keep in mind is that Pete is a d***. Poor Goofy, man. He's just trying to get ahead of his job, trying to get a raise, trying to get a promotion, and Pete is over here actually attempting to sabotage Goofy. It's ridiculous. What a d***. Hagane. This game is so hard that a cat couldn't scratch it, but it's certainly pretty. There's just something about the smoothness of the moving arms on the character and the sprite animations as the hero jumps around place to place, throwing tons of grenades and whatever else. The bosses look amazing, they look awesome, and there's some interesting effects going on here like these rose petals. Now the detail in this game might leave some thinking it's a pixely mess, but retro lovers will certainly appreciate the attention to detail in the characters and the backgrounds alike. Kirby's Dream Land 3. I have a soft spot for cute games and cartoon-like games, so this style of game really appeals to me. It's sort of like a storybook and has this hand-drawn aesthetic. This lovely game also used a special chip for the graphics. Kirby, in my humble opinion, doesn't seem to mind to take risks with graphical styles, and this was one of his first forays into that.
and later we'd see stuff like Kirby's Epic Yarn, which, again, is beautiful. While the grounds might be a physical location, Kodelka relies on the psychological horror to mess with us. The game plays with the fear of the unknown and keeps players on the edge for the entire game. Lunar Silver Star Story Complete is about as classic as it comes. It's a tale of adventure, of friendship, and the battle between good and evil. The story follows Alex, a young boy from the village of Berg, who dreams of becoming a dragon master like his hero Dying. Accompanied by his friends Luna and Ramus, Alex embarks on a journey to become the next dragon master and to uncover the mysteries of the goddess Althena. As Alex and his party explore the world of Lunar, they encounter various characters, many of whom are super funny, face challenges, and they discover a growing threat from the Magic Emperor, who seeks to exploit the power of Althena for his own ambitions. Mega Man X3. While not the most celebrated of the bunch of Mega Man X games on the Super Nintendo, the first one is the best, obviously, let's be honest, this one really pushed the graphics. It's clear that the 3 Mega Man X games are all similar on the Super Nintendo, but this one really added so much to the graphics with such smooth animations and the sprites, and the wireframe sort of graphics that show up periodically in the game. This game, like Yoshi's Island and Mega Man X2, used a special chip to enhance the graphics. That's why you don't see this as secondhand Chinese fakes. ActRaiser 2. This game is an incredible representation of being a god.
To indeed be a god!
The first game is usually the one most people love and admire the most, but this game is just a graphical step up. Granted, it's a slight change in gameplay, as you don't have to do the simulation stuff anymore, which many people favor to be fair, but the beautiful sprite work in this game, along with all the poses and such for each character, is complex and detailed. The Adventures of Batman and Robin. I didn't know that it was possible for a game so well to capture the spirit of an animated series. Wow. This game is absolutely gorgeous and feels almost like a scaled down version of the show, from lots of pixels to, fewer pixels. It's such an incredible ratio. This game can make you feel like your parents were gunned down in the middle of an alley and now you're a off vigilante. And you'll be happy about it.
You're gonna be f***ing pleased about it.
City of Lost Children. No lie, this game is creepy. And it starts off creepy as some dude warns a kid about kidnappings and then immediately tells the kid to run and hide when a creepy old dude tries to get him. The kid runs around the corner where he thinks it's safe, and some folks snag the child and put him in the back of a truck. Then our adventure starts. That is dark. First things first, I love that dress.
Fabulous!
It really sets our main character apart from the background, and I can appreciate that. The rest of the game, though, is fairly muddy, gritty, dark. It makes sense, and it's real looking with static backgrounds and with 3D characters over the top. That's kind of the layout you get with this game. But making our main character stand out with that bright red dress, very smart. Dart Failed from Legend of Dragoon. Dart's personal history, including the tragic loss of his parents and his quest for revenge against the Black Monster, sets the stage for a compelling and emotionally charged narrative. Dart's desire for vengeance and his determination to confront his past resonate with players who can empathize with his journey of self-discovery and of healing. Throughout the game, Dart evolves from a lone warrior seeking revenge to a key figure in a larger conflict.
I tend to think of myself as a one-man wolf pack.
We got that fancy Mode 7, I think it's Mode 7 at least, stuff like when you're flying around, and that's some pretty epic travel, a staple really for the Super Nintendo. When you play this one, you get so lost in the moment and forget a couple of things. First thing, this game is likely the same Capcom engine, I guess that you would call it, that A Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse utilized. They feel, oddly similar. And you'll forget that you're the jerk Firebrand from Ghosts and Goblins.
I hate that guy.
There's this story that someone from Nintendo went to Rare's headquarters in England to check out what they were doing with Donkey Kong Country and the pre-rendered graphic stuff that they got rolling. And the person from Nintendo was impressed, but started looking under the shelf where the SNES was sitting, trying to find the PC that the game had been running on. They were, of course, shocked when they learned that it was actually just running on the Super Nintendo, and the pre-rendered graphics were that great. That is about all the testimony you need to know that this game looks so good still, despite running on 30-year-old hardware.
It's still good.
Earthworm Jim. the absolute epitome of the 90s, with a little attitude, absurd, and just general grossness. Earthworm Jim looks amazing even today on the Super Nintendo. There are some impressive 3D render things like this hanging fridge, and some really impressive animations for character sprites. The underwater sections look as awesome as they are frustrating. And while it's a tough game, it's worth giving a shot just to see how excellent character sprites could look in an action game for the Super Nintendo.
Fei Fong Wong from Xenogears. Fei Wong is undoubtedly one of the most complex and relatable protagonists in just the overall history of video games. His emotional journey and personal growth throughout the course of Xenogears for PlayStation 1 is just nothing short of remarkable. At the outset of the game, Fei is portrayed as a troubled and a conflicted individual struggling to find his place in the world. However, as the story progresses, we see him evolve into a hero that's taking charge, taking things by the horn, and just moving forward and evolving, I guess. See, what makes Fei such a fascinating character is the internal conflicts that he's facing. For instance, his battle with his alternative personality, the id, is a struggle that many of us can relate to on some level.
Let's dance.
We all have aspects of our personality that we wish we could change, or maybe we could suppress it, like the id. And Fei's journey serves as a powerful reminder that we have the power to overcome even our darkest impulses. Sweet Home for the NES. I've mentioned this game several times on my channel, but I can't help myself. It spooks me. Sweet Home is a survival horror RPG about a team of 5 explorers and, I guess, videographers. And these videographers and these people, they go to uncover the secrets within the Mamiya mansion. I guess that's how you pronounce it, Mamiya. There they get trapped and they have to escape this house of Resident Evil. It's probably common knowledge at this point that this is an inspiration for the Resident Evil franchise. Well, folks go to this creepy mansion and they have to pay the price for their indulgences. And if that's not a horror movie setup, then I just don't know what is. What's that phrase? You play stupid games and you win stupid prizes. That's right. Metroid. Spoiler, she's a chick. Navigate through a labyrinthian alien world filled with creatures that would make even H.R. Geiger raise an eyebrow. The creatures are actually the easy part, honestly, as the navigation, even with a map, is crazy intense. The absolute isolation of this game is daunting, haunting, and rhyming. It's lonelier than a Hitmonlee ladies' night at the club. Samus, clearly, is tougher than shoe leather.
What's that cheerleader doing with a helmet on? That's no cheerleader, that's my niece, Becky.
Parasite Eve. Parasite Eve is set in 1997 New York, where the main protagonist attends an opera, and everything just goes to hell pretty quickly. It's actually a super wild scene if you've never seen it. Holy smokes. I remember being blown away by it back in the day when I was first playing the game. It is very cinematic, particularly for this time. It's a good thing it's not Christmas Eve, right? That could ruin somebody's day. But it is Christmas Eve.
Oh my god!
So the story takes place as Aya. I don't know that I've ever heard it pronounced in a cutscene. Aya? So the story takes place as the main character looks to discover what is happening over a 6-day period. Who is this Eve lady that's murdering folks, and basically, what the heck is going on? Parasite Eve follows Aya Bray, a New York City cop who's attending the opera at Carnegie Hall. Things take a turn for the weird when everyone starts bursting into flames. Aya discovers that the main actor in the opera has gained the ability to control mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. As the city descends into chaos due to the mutated creatures spawned by Melissa's powers, Aya sets out to stop the threat and uncover the mysteries behind the incident. While I have responsibilities now that don't afford me the same amount of time that I had back when I was a teenager, I can still get a wild hair and delve into an MMO every once in a while. But of course, it's just a lot harder on the body nowadays. It's an itch that doesn't seem to go away and a wound that just never seems to heal. It's fair to assume this game is a banger anyway, since it was developed by Sonic Team and published by Sega. They don't always hit, but when they do, when they do hit, they hit. Punch-Out! With no Mike Tyson. Womp womp. We like to think size doesn't matter, but then there's Little Mac, right? While he's armed with a killer uppercut, unfortunately, cheeky optimism doesn't keep your teeth in your mouth.
A wise man once said, everyone has a plan until you're punched in the mouth.
There's just something about learning you're not the biggest and baddest dude around that's so simultaneously humbling yet encouraging. Some days you might think you want to jack up Glass Joe for his stupid-looking face, but then you have to remember that Mr. Dream exists. If you're not being mercilessly beat to a pulp, are you truly living? Rhapsody, a musical adventure. I love cuteness. I love RPGs, but I do not love Rhapsody. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, right? I mean, I guess that doesn't really apply here, but whatever. This game is absolutely beautiful. It is eat up with cuteness, and I live for this sort of aesthetic in video games. Not to mention, it's a music-based concept too, but I can't help but fall asleep every time I try to play this game. Why? I find it terribly boring, but I don't know why. Folks, here's something about me you might not know. I love musicals. I am wildly eclectic when it comes to my taste in music. I was in band for years, I played drums, I marched. I'm generally sort of musically inclined beyond drums as well, but I can't bring myself to love this game, and I don't know that I can adequately explain it. Graphically, this game was kind of in its grave before it even got started, and it's since been commonly known as the game that tried to beat Final Fantasy VII, for better or for worse.
You won't have eyes tonight. You won't have ears or a tongue. You will wander the underworld blind, deaf, and dumb, and all the dead will know. This is Hector, the fool who thought he killed Achilles.
First, Shantae. Shantae, the half-genie hero, and, well, really any Shantae game, is the opportunity you've been looking for to dance your way through the problems of the world.
I love this song!
This is an enchanting series of platformer games that have vibrant visuals, catchy music, and charming characters. Shantae seamlessly blends modern gameplay with a retro aesthetic, paying homage to classic 2D side-scrolling adventures. The series is a nostalgic throwback to classic platformers, featuring highly stylized art or pixel art and gameplay mechanics that resonate with our retro gaming spirit. Shining the Holy Ark. This game is absolutely just filled with mystery and magic and medieval adventure, and that's exactly what I like in an RPG. The story is about a group of young heroes that are tasked with uncovering secrets behind a powerful artifact known as the Holy Ark. Not to be confused with the Ark of the Covenant like that base melter. Shovel Knight. No other game has made me want so dearly to pogo with a shovel. DuckTales did it with a cane, but this game got me with the shovel. This game is an absolute love letter to retro platformers. This game was released in 2014 and pays homage to classics like Mega Man and, well, the aforementioned DuckTales, but it also carves out its own identity with awesome characters. Initially, Skies of Arcadia came out on the Dreamcast in the year 2000. It was incredibly well received on the Dreamcast, and then 2 years later, it was released on the GameCube. The GameCube version added some new missions, some more weapons, and used the higher processing power of the GameCube to give the game a bit of a makeup overhaul sort of thing. Despite the upgrades on the GameCube version, apparently the original is still incredibly solid, and fans suggest that choosing either is a good choice regardless. We're talking Super Mario Bros. 1, 2, 3, and the Lost Levels. You probably remember your first Mario game. Mario is like the gates of hell from Dante or something. Before me nothing was created, nothing but the eternal, and I last eternally. People smile when they play regardless of their age, station, or whatever, and you'll smile too playing Super Mario Bros. 1 through 3 in the Lost Levels. Well, that's not true. You won't smile during the Lost Levels, but the rest you will. As a matter of fact, you likely wouldn't spit on the Lost Levels if they were on fire.
Revenge!
Sonic Mania. As far as I'm concerned, Sonic is timeless, and I think Sonic's continual release of new games is a testament to how much people love the character and want to see him succeed. While we've seen ups and downs in the Sonic franchise, there's just something magical about 2D Sonic, and he's back to his 2D roots in this game in a way that resonates deeply with retro gaming enthusiasts like you and I. The game's marriage of 8-bit and 16-bit graphics feels like a pixelated kiss on your bicep. What sets The Messenger apart is its clever take on the traditional formula. The game starts as a linear action platformer but evolves into a Metroidvania experience, providing a modern spin on classic gameplay. This shift sort of symbolizes the evolution of gaming over time, and dude, that's cool.
Go ninja, go!
Undertale. Never has there been a game that so closely mimics the heart of Earthbound. Yes, baby, Earthbound.
Toby Fox, a huge Earthbound fan, created Undertale, and it is a one-of-a-kind indie gem that defies typical RPG conventions, much like its inspiration, and delivers an incredibly unique experience. Released in 2015, the game quickly gained a cult following for its innovative gameplay, memorable characters, and emotional storytelling. Vagrant Story is another one that is absolutely gorgeous. Like, this game doesn't really use pre-rendered backgrounds. I think everything is 3D modeled. So there's a lot of jaggies going on, but this game has such a beautiful art style regardless. And when you upscale it, it looks pretty nice. I mean, upscale it through an emulator, take a look at it, holy smokes. It's not too shabby looking. I think it could be like really impressive looking. Now, it's not going to be on the same level as like Final Fantasy XII, which is set in the same world or whatever, but man, it would be so good to play this game, the remastered version, make it look like those Tactics Ogre portraits that we recently got. Oh, that would be lovely. The combat in this game is, again, very unique. It's different. And I think that's part of the appeal, is that we don't see a lot of games like this. I mean, I guess kind of like that VAT system in Fallout, but like more action-oriented, which I guess you could also melee stuff and Fallout, but whatever, you get the point. Valkyrie Profile is a game about a Valkyrie named Lilith who works for Odin, the chief god of the Norse pantheon. Lilith's job, and your job by extension, is to recruit and train the souls of fallen warriors to fight the final battle of Ragnarok. The game explores themes of destiny, sacrifice, and the impending apocalypse. The story begins with Lilith waking up with no memory of her past. Odin guides her to gather powerful souls before Ragnarok arrives, and so Lilith travels through different realms, meeting various characters with tragic tales, and they're real freaking sad. But that makes for good storytelling. Give me something sad. This game is absolute. I did a video about it, about how we never surpassed it, how it's just so important to video games and RPGs, and there are so many people that were just in the comments being like, yes, yes, yes. Because I mean, I know the fans are out there. This game is nearly perfect, I would argue. And it would just be so nice to get some kind of HD version of this. Of course, HD 2D. I'm preaching to the choir. We all want it. We all, just give it to us. It prints money. It prints money. This game is so important. But there's a lot of potential here. With a 2D HD remake, this game will be absolutely gorgeous. I don't think I would want it outside of that. I don't think I would want the Secret of Mana treatment. I wouldn't want to see a 3D version of it unless they did like a Final Fantasy VII remake version of this. That would, it deserves it. Don't get me wrong, and I could be patient knowing it was coming. Zelda 1 and Zelda 2. Before Link was hang gliding, he was this elf-looking, no GPS having pop breaker chopping down shrubs like a manic gardener in this medieval scavenger hunt. There are 2 versions on the Switch for these games, and they're basically like, easier modes of the game, and that is welcomed. Zelda 1 isn't too difficult with the strategy guide, but if Mario is as eternal as the portal to hell, Zelda 2 is what lies beyond the door. Don't get me wrong, I'm here for it, but I think there's a word for a person like me sometimes.
I'm a cotton-headed ninny-muggins.
Ark the Lad. Ark the Lad 2 and 3 are longer than a cat's tail in a room full of rocking chairs. For real. But Ark the Lad 1 is actually one of the shortest RPGs on the PS1. The story of Ark the Lad is sort of funny in the sense that it's about an opened ark that could cause the destruction of the world that is sealed by Ark. But now Ark, given his propensity for arcs, must find the ark and reseal it. What? Ark of the Ark might have been a better name, but, I mean, for real, it's a short game, it's loaded with story, and I can certainly appreciate that. Your hometown rests at the bottom of this large tower, which is the Monster Tower. People travel here for fame and glory and riches in their hunt for monster eggs. This has created quite the nice little setup for this town. It's almost like Gatlinburg at the foot of the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee in the United States or something. Or really any sort of business outside of a large attraction. I mean, Disney World, Disneyland, Las Vegas, whatever. You're going to the Monster Town, you might as well come and eat at our buffet, you know what I mean? Get you some monster eggs for breakfast or something. Yeah, you see, it makes sense. We do this. It's not a Far Cry. Bloodstain, Curse of the Moon. This is basically just old school Castlevania. It's just if you love Castlevania 3 in particular on the NES, you'll love this game. This game came out prior to Bloodstained Ritual of the Night as a sort of like pre-story and preview. I don't know why we got such an amazing service with this, but I am certainly thankful. Celeste is a difficult puzzle platformer that will absolutely punch you right in the feels.
You won't be needing this.
You play as Madeline as she climbs a literal and, well, metaphorical mountain. She's working through some things, and I honestly don't want to spoil too much, but it's a concise narrative that is certainly experienced through the gameplay. Her struggles become your struggles, and so you both end up on that journey together. And that's just precious. Chrono Cross centers on a young man named Serge who finds himself transported to an alternate world where he drowned as a child. Do you think they just called him Dude until he died? I mean, how's that work? As Serge explores this parallel reality, he discovers a multifaceted plot involving dimensions, time travel, and a world-threatening event known as the Time Devourer. The narrative unfolds as Serge gathers a diverse group of characters, each with their own motivations and connections to the overarching plot. Cuphead, man, I had been stoked about this game since about 2013 when it was announced, and it didn't come out for 4 more years. I was immediately drawn to the early 1900s cartoon style, and I honestly didn't think video games could look this good. When the game went relatively silent for years, I just assumed that it was too good to be true. Then it finally came out, and oh my goodness.
You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
Cyber Shadow. Cyber Shadow is a modern take on the classic ninja action games of the 8-bit era, like Ninja Gaiden and Strider. Well, I guess Strider was more of an arcade game, but whatever. And this is very similar to The Messenger, and it offers a blend of retro aesthetics and modern game design. I guess the real distinction is that this game is really focused on the action, less than the narrative. For retro gamers, Cyber Shadow is a nostalgic trip back to the days of challenging platformers and relentless ninja action. Dark Savior. The game opens up and it's honestly kind of hilarious. You have this tragic moment where this guy dies and it was like, I'm looking forward to going hunting with you again. Just kind of like cheesy sort of stuff, but I like it. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's funny at this point. I can appreciate that.
When we get back to the world, put together that 3-piece combo band we talked about.
Me on stand-up bass.
Johnny on the drums. And me tickling the ivories.
I hear a sound. See them in the dark. I know there's someone there. Why don't you believe me? Maybe you're right.
Donkey Kong. A tale of simian vendettas and questionable workplace safety where the ultimate goal is to rescue a damsel in distress. Donkey Kong, even after years and years, is still a solid go-to game. It's not the pre-rendered sprite love child that we're willing to fist fight in the streets over, but it's definitely still one of the funnest and most addictive arcade games out there. If I only had $1 to call and check on Mama in the hospital, I'd be jumping barrels and swinging hammers instead. Yes, this game is more fulfilling than knowing the state of your grandmother's health.
I'm so glad to see you.
I'm glad to see you too, Grandma. I've been thinking about you all the time.
Tetris with pills. Plumbing is boring, but hey, pharmaceuticals aren't. Our medical strategy involves throwing oversized vitamins at a bunch of sentient viruses. Let's face it, insurance is expensive, so instead of using the healthcare system, put your faith in gravity-defying pills and color-matching skills, baby. Woo! This will eradicate those pixelated pathogens. It's a bizarre medical approach, but at least it's fun. The only thing sicker than your patient is the beat playing in the background while you undoubtedly wreak havoc on someone's immune system. Good job, Doctor. Earthbound Beginnings. It's better if you ignore that absolutely horrifying beginning story and just get started where you're a normal kid and it's a lamp. Oh, really, I think I said it best in my video about Earthbound Beginnings. Bopping this baby leads to the same messed up line. Doll doesn't move anymore. Doll shouldn't move in the first place. You're the kid, stop the alien invasion. These adults have better things to do, man. This game is suburban surrealism. Why does nobody care that the world is ending?
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
If you thought Earthbound was campy and weird, hey, buckle up. That tree doesn't fall far from the apple. Or something like that. This game was released at retail for $10. $10! And it doesn't go for much more than that now, nearing 30 years later. I'm not sure how I went so long without paying attention to Eternal Eyes. It looks like Final Fantasy Tactics. And that's enough to get me going. I mentioned Final Fantasy Tactics because, as you can see, this game looks like Tactics. Granted, it's not as pretty as Tactics is, but you know what? It looks the part.
Now I'll never be a teen model. I'll never be anything. What's the point of living? I might as well die.
I love the difficulty in these games. Permadeath just really ramps up the difficulty, but admittedly, I'm definitely one of the people that, more often than not, just resets the game when someone dies. I'm not dealing with that mess. I like the difficulty, but I like to have options too, you know? It seems most Fire Emblem games have some sort of unique feature that makes it stand out from the rest of the Fire Emblem games, and this one apparently includes some shape-shifting abilities for the characters, allowing them to change into animals during combat. As this game has not received any sort of re-release beyond the GameCube, it makes sense that it is expensive. They could upscale the anime cutscenes to make those look lovely, increase the time on battles if you wanted to, increase the amount of money that you get from battles, maybe a quest log, maybe give some kind of maps. Oh, there's all kinds of stuff you can do with Chrono Trigger to make it just that much better. Give us an orchestrated version of the music or a non-orchestrated version we could switch back and forth on. Maybe even make it so we can switch the graphics back and forth. Oh, that would be great. It seems like it's a no-brainer to give us Chrono Trigger again. You know we're going to buy it. You know we're going to buy it. Ghosts and Goblins, or Paints and Boogers as we like to call them in the South. This game will test you. Battle zombies, dodge hellish flying red devils, and watch your woman get kidnapped by demons, all while wearing armor made from the finest aluminum foil. Arthur's resilience is impressive, and so is yours if you make it remotely far into this hellscape of a game. But, to be fair, it's oddly addictive, like picking at a fresh scab or something. It's a little nasty, but whatever. Grandia is a classic JRPG about a young boy named Justin who dreams of becoming an adventurer like his dad. He's fascinated by an ancient civilization, so he sets off on a journey with his friends to discover its secrets and unlock the mysteries of the world. Along the way, they encounter some military-like forces that are looking to claim technology for their destructive purposes.
And it must stop!
Along the way, they uncover the true nature of the world, and it all boils down to the ancient conflict between good and between evil. The Grand Stream Saga story follows a young man who sets off on a quest to save a girl, align with a good army, oppose an organization of bad guys, and raise some floating islands back from the abyss. It's not overtly original, but it's interesting enough for me. Just looking at this game, you'll notice it is smooth as butter. Just everybody moves so incredibly smooth. You'll probably also notice these creepy, faceless people. Like, draw some googly eyes on these people or something. Give them some dots. They are a little spooky. Illusion of Gaia. Now, Illusion of Gaia is an Enix game. So Illusion of Gaia was my choice. It has beautiful sprites. It has all kinds of lovely stuff going on. But to see a remaster of this would be really cool. But Illusion of Gaia, absolutely. I haven't played that game in years, and I think it would do well. I think it would do really well for people. And it would do really well for Square Enix. Oh, it just hit me. Oh, that makes so much sense.
How could I be so stupid?
It would be so great. It would be so wonderful to see all three of those games come out in some kind of trilogy. Like, oh, that'd be great. Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, and Terra Nigma all in some little digital collection where, like, God forbid a physical copy. Ooh. Journey to Silius. When your father dies under mysterious circumstances, you have options. But those don't really matter as it's time to put on your spacesuit and start blasting robots.
I started blasting.
Jay's journey takes him through mechanical wastelands filled with drones and laser shooting contraptions. It's a tale of revenge in a world where platforms and pitfalls are more dangerous than crapping in a well after dark. This game is relentless. It's fair, but daggone it's hard. Turn your grief into griefing as you destroy all robots in this high-octane, side-scrolling action game like your therapist was Mega Man or something. Kirby's Adventure. Someone's been stealing dreams, and it's not the general disillusionment of the population nor the declining economy of the United States. But you know what? Suck 'em. You heard me correctly. Suck 'em. Be a culinary chameleon and adopt their powers and use it against them. Picture this, a pink spherical vacuum cleaner of destruction floating through whimsical landscapes, swallowing and hollering. Kirby proves that heroes come in different shapes and sizes, and this one just happens to be Bubblegum Vengeance. Koudelka sounds amazing on paper. This is a horror RPG that's based in Wales in 1898. I mean, what can go wrong here? This is a recipe for excellence. The setting of the captivating storyline is the haunted Nemeton Monastery situated in Wales. The plot revolves around the journey of the main characters as they uncover this long-kept secret of Nemeton. and confront the monstrous beings born from its dark and mysterious past. The gameplay is divided into distinct segments: event scenes, where story sequences unfold; exploration, which incorporates some puzzle-solving elements; and the battle screen, of course, where players engage in combat against the monstrous creatures that inhabit Nebaton. Kodelka for the PlayStation 1. Do you like haunted mansions? Do you like spooky houses? Well, you're gonna like this one. Kodelka takes place in a monastery that's converted into a mansion. Well, that couldn't go wrong, right? There's plenty of spooky things to go down in this place for sure. The game is a bit dark, including, a little death, the occult, and, well, some, personal tragedy. That's a nice touch. In a genre that's typically overrun with stories of heroism and personal revenge, well, horror fans can feel right at home with, with these monsters. Kodelka incorporates elements commonly found in survival horror games, such as limited resources, some puzzle solving, and just a sense of isolation. This adds an extra layer of tension and fear to the gameplay. The game is a collection of stories that intertwine between these travelers as they go about their days. Many of these stories are incredibly dark, including child slavery, genocide, unchecked ambition, greed. It's like a color wheel of sins of the world.
My friends need to be punished.
But they are all inspiring. There's plenty of world to discover, classes and abilities to master, and powerful and viable combinations to use to destroy the darkness in the world. The Legend of Dragoon is a game about a young warrior named Dart Feld who wants revenge for the death of his parents and the destruction of his hometown by a mysterious villain called the Blight Monster. So basically it's an RPG. As Dart pursues his revenge, he gets caught up in a much bigger conflict and, RPG antics ensue. Along the way, Dart is joined by a group of other Dragoons, each with their own unique magical transformations that give them immense strength. Legend of Oasis. This game is a lot like Zelda, but with a few more RPG elements. It's like, imagine if an action role-playing game had a baby with Zelda, The Legend of Zelda. It's weird. Okay, let's do that again. Let's do that. Roll it back. It's like an action RPG had a baby with The Legend of Zelda. I say it pretty often regarding games, and particularly on this list, and maybe it's nostalgia goggles for these types of graphics, but again, the graphics in this game, it makes me sick. I'm disgusted how much I love this stuff. Lost Kingdoms 2. Ironically, Lost Kingdoms 2, it's ironic because of the title, it had a limited release in North America and Europe, making it relatively rare compared to other GameCube games. Limited availability often drives up the price in the collector's market, right? Despite being released in these limited quantities, there seems to be a pretty dedicated, small fan base that stand up for this game. The biggest applause I've seen about it touts it as considerably better than the original game. That's gotta be a good thing, right? Improvement? While the game has some lukewarm Metacritic scores from critics, the general consensus of all 18 people that regarded it on Metacritic say it's pretty good. Use your influence and riches in the town to do some town building aspects, and you'll be picking up some chicks. Alright.
Sherman is moving to DEFCON 2. Full strategic arsenal, ready for deployment.
Living the dream, man. Hey girl, have you seen my corn crop? Let me take a peek at you. That's a dumb joke. Blazing Heroes. Blazing Heroes was known as Mystaria, the Realms of Lore in Europe. It was known as Riglord Saga in Japan.
I don't know. Who am I?
The setup is that you have these 12 characters to fight 5 generals who serve Lord Bane, who has cast a spell on your mommy to make her give up the land of Queensland. Recruitment of these heroes isn't linear, and I think that's really neat. This was a very forward-thinking setup, more so than I would have imagined. And the story readjusts itself to accommodate this story of Knight and his trek with a little creature named Baby.
That was the summer of 1963. When everybody called me baby, and it didn't occur to me to mind.
Actually, in Japan, the game was called, appropriately enough, Knight and Baby. The story sees the knight traveling when he is gifted Baby and a flash of light. A voice tells him to deliver Baby to the God's Tower where it came from. When he tells the mayor about Baby, the mayor says, "Keep that kid in a cave and move on," which we do. Dang, tough break for Baby. But Knight eventually feels pretty crummy about this and goes back to retrieve Baby. Because, well, as we all know,
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
in the wrong context, even something as innocuous as Super Mario Bros. Can be catastrophic. But that's not the fault of the game or the designers. Just because we're in a bad place when we play a game doesn't make it the designer's fault. That's a lack of awareness of our context. It's kind of similar to the idea of drink responsibly, right? While regulation is certainly effective and necessary to some degree, moderation is the responsibility of the individual. And while it is human nature and easier to point fingers away from ourselves like this is somebody else's fault, it is unlikely that Nintendo intended to do harm with a game like Super Princess Peach. Why would they? That's not a good fiscal decision. In this game, the world is entrenched in a dense jungle with the only reprieves being these small villages. The protagonist and your character is a young man who is a cocoon master, or at least becomes a cocoon master. What this job entails is basically capturing creatures, kind of like Pokemon, into cocoons and purifying them. They can be turned into money, used for fighting, or used for fusing. Basically, it's like Pokemon with a fusion system. And if you could sell Pokemon you caught to a black market for money, then this would be it. At least it's kind of like it. I mean, you're literally turning them into money. So maybe it's not that much like Pokemon. Maybe I just want that darker Pokemon world, besides Persona and chicken fighting. Some weird parallels to think about, right? I'm typically not crazy about card games like this, and had I purchased this unknowingly back in the day, I would have been just a little upsetty spaghetti.
You triggered my trap card!
No, just let me choose my attacks from a menu, please. Attack, item, block, whatever. Just I don't want to use a card. I don't want to use a card. Pokemon XD, Gale of Darkness. Maybe part of the appeal of this game is that it's a Pokemon experience that's a little different than the tried and true formula Nintendo typically offers. Instead of capturing Pokemon like normal in a Pokemon game, you have to steal them in Pokemon Gale of Darkness. Now this, I can get behind that. It's like Cruella de Vil or something, except you plan to battle the Dalmatians instead of turn them into coats, or make coats out of Pokemon. Either way, it's... I always did want to be the villain. Virtual Hide-Glide. It is so early 90s, it's just eat up with that early 90s charm. This game was actually pretty innovative for the time. You have to remember that these graphics were state-of-the-art, that this gameplay was cutting edge, like bleeding edge stuff. The leveling system in this game is based on completing tasks rather than experience, so the grind is a bit weird. I like the idea of fighting a bunch of slimes and leveling up that way, but that's just not the way it works in this game.